Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, listeners. Welcome to the VIP sessions. If you're wondering what on earth you're listening to, we are just a small, tightly knit little community that wants to expand a little bit in the realm of professional wrestling. All we try and do is basically say, come here, have fun, enjoy yourself, and just verbally beat each other up. Does that sound about right to you, JJ?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, we say a small community. I think basically there's me and you, and then I think just Marky in it. I think he's everybody else.
Really?
He's had about 30 characters or something, hasn't he, over the years?
Oh, he's currently running, what, 3?
I think 3 at the minute, yeah. To be fair, one of them's not active, so.
But yeah, literally, if you want to come join our fun, don't do what I did on my first session. Do not go right up to the champion's face, declare you're the best, and then verbally get your arse handed to you.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be fair, though, got you noticed, didn't it?
No, it didn't. You killed me.
Do you know
Anyway,
what? That was so long ago, that.
Well, that was so long ago. We have been going a very, very, very long time.
Well, I've been 2008, so yeah. But it started 2007, and I think that was when it all kicked off, so about 17 years.
Anyway, I keep forgetting to tell people where on earth we are right now. If you want to come find us, you want to come look for us, go to www.606v2.com. You'll find it's a forum board. You'll find the 6CWF in there. Come say hi in the general chat, and JJ will get you sorted out for wondering where you're going to be placed.
Yeah, absolutely. Just drop me a message or whatever. Just put a. I mean, to be fair, in explaining kind of what we do, Efedding, basically you just pretend that you're a wrestler. You have to talk a load of shit. I think it's a good creative outlet, isn't it, for a lot of people?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely very creative. I mean, I've slugged away at this for how many years, and well, you've seen what I've improved.
I mean, you have, mate. Absolutely, 100%. And people do, but you know, I think I was listening to a few of these from a few years back that they did, and there was one with Dicey, and he was saying, you know, he just got into it really for the creative writing side, nothing to do with like winning, which I think's easy to say when he's practically won everything.
True, but like I say, you mean the last time I also did one of these, I think I got us cancelled.
Right, so this is a one and done thing then, yeah. We'll do this and then we'll no more after that.
Oh, but anyway, like I say, the man who I'm calling JJ, well, the man who is JJ, I should say, is the head guy in charge. He is the booker. He is the man with the pencil. He's the one who determines your fate, and he's the one who ignores every single suggestion you offer him, even though it's...
I mean, you're making it sound like I completely dismiss everybody's ideas, which I don't.
No, not everyone's, just mine.
I mean, to be fair, that one that you sent me the other day wasn't too bad. I have logged it. I'm not going to say whether it's going to definitely happen or not, but it wasn't bad. It was all right, actually. And I hadn't thought about that. Until you brought it up, I hadn't thought about it.
Honestly, when I looked through the champion history, it's like, hang on, wait, this happened. Can I use it? Okay, offer it as a suggestion.
I mean, no, I genuinely. You think that I've just like swept it under the rug, but I haven't, because
no, honestly, I just know my success rate with my ideas, and you.
Yeah, I know, but I think, to be honest, that's most people. I mean, I take on board what everybody asks, or I think it's probably why I've annoyed some people over the years, because I tweak it. Like, I'm not saying that nobody has good ideas, because they really do, but then I think about it myself, and I'm like, well, what can we change to make it better?
Okay, I understand that, but okay, let's go into the series of questions, because like I say, JJ, you are the first guest, and you basically just gone, ask me anything, haven't you?
100%. Anything at all. Like, I've been doing this so long, and like I said, I listened to all the podcasts, the 6WF ones that they did. You hosted them. I can't believe you can't even remember that you did them. Like, there was quite a lot of them. And then there was a 6CW one as well that I think Pete did. and I never ever was a guest on any of them.
Wow, really?
No, I don't think they even asked me, to be honest.
Okay, but basically,
Ever.
going back to those who suggest who of the idea of suggesting storylines for yourself and that for people and that. My first question is: who has never asked you? Who's never given you a suggestion for anything they have done?
What, like, messaged me and asked for something in particular?
No, who has never done that?
Right. To be fair, there's a few, I would say, who just literally go with, like, Demon, who did Cassius. I don't think he just went with the flow. Like, he was kind of happy with whatever we did, and he turned it into gold pretty much most of the time that he did anything. So I don't think I ever had anything from him in terms of, can we do this? He showed a lot of trust, and then whatever we kind of offered up,
And
he ran with it.
Yeah, I mean, even when you basically went with him, basically saying, "Right, you're feuding with a commentator and a stuffed bear."
Oh yeah, I mean, to be fair, that wasn't my idea. That was Matt and Beer, but to be fair, that whole thing with the bear, he absolutely, he tore that up, didn't he? He was brilliant with that.
He took the ball and he ran with it.
Right at that time, don't get me wrong, the whole storyline about that was supposed to be me, and I was building up to a retirement, which was 12 years ago, and I'm still active. But basically, yeah, it was going into Born in Fire, and I was going to face him, and then obviously I went over him, won the title, and then retired. Which
you Terry Funk your way into a situation.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, pretty much. But in all honesty, and I appreciate Beer and Matt let me go over, but I mean, he absolutely hammered me in that feud. He was just so good. It was ridiculous.
To be honest,
and if he's listening, right, he didn't answer any of my messages. Like, I've Facebook messaged him, I've sent him PMs right on V2. He just purely ignores me. So if anybody, or if he's listening, or anybody gets in touch with him, right, tell him to sort himself out, because we all want him to come back.
I will second this. I have PM'd him. I have messaged him on Facebook, and it's just like, dude, seriously, I want to face you again purely because you are that damn good. This is not a joke on being a kiss ass. This is me being genuine.
Yeah,
you pushed me. You pushed me further than I've ever gone, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that feud that you had with him, and it was, to be fair, it was quite a brief one in the end. Like, I think it could have had a lot more legs than it ended up having. But yeah, he does. He makes it. You can think of so many feuds that he's had, and like you said, even stuff where you just give him nonsensical things like a teddy bear or something with a commentator, and he just turns it. He's brilliant. He's absolutely spot on. I would like him to come back.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now let's go back into the realm of the questions themselves. I mean,
yeah,
we've got a few standard ones. I mean, let's take a few standard ones. For example, I mean, you obviously have been writing the show for a while. How long does it roughly take you to write up a show?
What, the week, like not the pay-per-views, just mean like the normal weekly shows.
You can go both if you can say both if you want.
Yeah. So the weekly shows now, obviously, we've kind of changed the format of it. So we do like the sort of short and bullet point matches and the segments. So it is easier to write. It doesn't take me as long, I would say, because I give myself 10 days between shows. So I'd say it probably takes, say if I spent an hour a day, I don't, because I give myself some days off, but so probably about roughly 10, 12 hours, I would say, to make sure everything's spot on, which is completely different to how I used to. I mean, we used to write all the matches full blown, and that used to take ages. I mean, it was ridiculous.
We're talking a couple of thousand words at least each.
Yeah, it was mad. I mean, I remember when I took over first time for 6CW, which was 2011, I think, and I was doing weekly, every 7 days. I was doing shows and I was writing the whole thing pretty much myself, full matches and that. And then after 12 months, I just had pure burnout. I couldn't do it anymore. As for pay-per-views, even now, I mean, they take a while, which I think is why I leave such a gap now, usually between like 2 and 3 weeks to write it up. Because, I mean, it's harder now because I'm older. Obviously, sort of working around family and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be really easy. You know, I could stay up till 3 a.m. and, you know, I'd drink 6 Lucozades or whatever and we'd just crack on. But, yes, that's why it takes longer now. So, yeah, probably for pay-per-views, I'd probably say, because I average out now about 50,000 words without the segments for pay-per-view. So, yeah, it takes a while, but not as
Yeah.
long as it used to.
Obviously, you had any? I assume you've had like mental blocks during those like writing shows on that.
Yeah, you do. Of course you do, because, you know, you're going at it like hammer and tongue and you think you're doing really well. And then you might get stuck on a spot, or I think sometimes what I've done, I don't know if people have ever noticed it, they probably have, but you end up having like the same sort of sequence. So if you're writing like 6 or 7 matches and you write the same sequence in about 2 or 3, and then you're like, I've already done that. Like, we've already done that spot or something already. So then I have to stop and have a little think, and then we come back and then we try again. But yeah, definitely mental block can happen.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit I've seen it a couple of times where you basically just gone 1, 2, end of the post, and then then you just go wait anxiously for the next one.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard with the posting of the show. Sometimes I feel like I used to do it where I just posted. I'd write the whole show and then I just post it like straight away, all of it at once, so then everybody can read it at their own leisure. And then sometimes I'm like try and stagger it through the day. I don't know which one people prefer, to be honest. But
Well,
yeah, I get. Go on, mate. Sorry.
no. Like I was going to say, actually, you leave feedback forms so they can always. I mean, they can put stuff like that in the feedback, can't they?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I put up these discussion threads and feedbacks, and everyone's grand, right? And everyone's like dead positive, which I appreciate. You know, maybe it's because it's good. I mean, I hope it is, but I don't mind, genuinely, like, don't mind negative or things that people would like to see different. In fact, I quite welcome it because I don't want everyone just like pretending that it's absolutely spot on if it's not. Like, if there's something you're not happy with, like, tell me, and then
Yeah.
obviously we can look at it.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I mean, honestly, my thought when you were posting it sporadically is like, okay, you're busy, you've got family, you're posting it in your own time.
Well, yeah. To be honest with you, mate, that's usually pretty much what it is. I'm either doing it like if I'm doing it at home, then it will be in between family. If not, it's in between. It's at work, and it's in between pretending that I'm actually doing what I'm paid to do. Yeah, so you know, it's one of them. But I do find it. I don't think I've. It's hard to find the time to have like, especially with the pay per views, you know, because we're trying that new thing where we do the Twitter feed as well.
Yeah.
Which people seem to be enjoying that, but I think it takes. I'd have to have like a 6-7 hour period of the day where I could just post. And to be honest with you, mate, I don't usually have 6 or 7 hours spare to just do it all at one time.
Yeah, I can understand that.
So yeah, it's one of them.
Okay then, and just any names back you would like to get back if you could? I think we've already gotten. I think we both named the most obvious one that we want back.
Yeah, but in case you missed it, Demon, come back.
Please.
So yeah, absolutely. Whatever it takes. If we can get him back. And look, I know loads of people that speak to him on Facebook. All the guys must speak to him, right? So sort out, right? Even if he just comes back for one night. But you know what? Even if he didn't come, what I've tried to get across to him is I'd like him to come on the board, like, and just post, even if he's just chatting, because he's a really good presence to have around. he's a really decent guy from what I
Yeah.
know. So it'd be just quite nice for him to be around.
Yeah, but then you get the inevitable questions of he's back here, is he coming back to here?
Oh yeah, and I get that. And last time he did that, which was last year when we first started back up, he came on and he did, and he was posting around. And then I think I bombarded him with about 3 messages about coming back, and then he disappeared, and I've never seen him since. But I promised, like, I'm not gonna bombard him again because I've sent him too many messages. Like, it's his decision, but I just quite like him to come even on the board. Like I said, he's a sound guy, and he kind of makes it tick. Like it's a better. There's more
Yeah.
discussion when he's around.
Okay, then apart from him,
Yeah.
anyone
Okay.
else you would like back if you
Oh
could
yeah.
get them?
Yeah. I made a bit of a list, to be honest with you, yesterday. When I was going through some of the questions, and there are a few, to be fair, that I would really like. And if you can name anyone, right, I've probably messaged them at some point, and I either haven't had anything back, or some people do get back and just say you just don't have the time, or that they're not interested anymore. Marshall Murdoch being one, unfortunately, he's not interested in coming back ever, which is fair enough. I just really like the character, but
Honestly, one of the names I would like to really come back would be Crime Lord.
again, I've messaged Crime Lord on V2 a few times over the last year, and he logs on. He, he logs on and he reads my message, and then he logs back off again. So I'm assuming that he's just not interested. But
Yeah,
again,
obviously, we won't force anyone back if they don't want to do it. I mean,
it's not a forcing thing, and what I try and get across in the messages that I send is that it's different now. Like, it's a different kind of vibe altogether in terms of what we do. I mean, I think back to 10, 15 years where I think it was a bit more pressurized and everyone took it a little bit too seriously. And, everyone sort of, if you didn't win, people threw hissy fits on that. But
I know of a couple of stories about that.
Yeah, don't we all, and I'm sure we'll get on to that. But, yeah, that's the thing now. It's if you can promo, this is what I try and get across to everybody. If you can promo, fantastic. But I understand we're all older now with jobs and real life situations and family and all that. Like, that's just, if you around, I'm happy. Like, I'm not expecting everyone to smash out a promo every week. Like, if you can't, if you do, fantastic. If you can't, no bother. But it's just good to have them around. Which is what I've tried to get across in these messages I've sent out. But yeah,
it's more about the company than the effort.
yeah,
I think.
yeah. Agree, 100%. It's not. I don't know whether people think, is it me? Do they think that I have these expectations? Because I don't. I'd like it to be a busier board. Like, it doesn't even matter if you're promoting. I like people to be around. We used to have loads and loads of people. And yeah, there's not as many of us now. But I mean, the group that we've got is great. It honestly is. But I feel like I'm getting off course on the actual question. But I did make a list. Crime Lord was on there. To be fair, because I still think that his run as 6WF champion is probably one of the best ever. Yeah, I mean, they booked him. I mean, I wasn't involved at that time, which is mental, I know, for everyone to think that there was a storyline that was good that I wasn't involved in, but genuinely, like, it was really good. I think he had a battle royal where he won the thing from, like, he beat everyone, and I think they did a time attack match where he didn't drop the belt didn't change hands at all in like the 60 minutes. And to be fair, he deserved it. Yeah, he deserved it because he at that time his promos were wicked. Like, he was awesome. It never really happened for him when he moved over to 60W. I don't know if his art was in it. I mean, a lot of these lads were all sort of uni lads, weren't they? And they probably got bogged down in work and real life and women and all that one. That probably just took them astray. But at that time, yeah, he was brilliant.
Things change in life. I mean, obviously, life takes priority. I mean,
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that.
No, no, no. Of course, there's not. I'm not blaming any of these guys. You know, it is what it is, and I get that. But right, should I? I'll tell you my list. I feel like
Okay.
right. Big one for me. I would love to come back is Nemesis. What a guy he was.
I think he's a bit before my time.
He was like when I first joined in 2008. He was like the man. Like he was awesome. He was like the big heel kind of. I kind of seen him like the Undertaker. He was like a bit undead and all this kind of stuff, and he had this feud with Saint, and his promos were like next level compared to most people. And then he dropped the belt of Born in Fire to Hobo, which is a story for another time because I thought it was mental then, and I still think it's mental now. But that's my opinion. But even after, just as a bloke as well, he was a Sheffield United fan, and he was an Irish fella. Spoke to him quite a bit on like private message and that. But he was just so good.
Sorry, is this what the next show's at Bramall Lane?
Oh no, the next show's at Bramall Lane because I just thought Jeff Steele's the characters from Sheffield, and I thought not any spoilers that I'm going to say that Jeff Steele's going to be an absolute massive part of that show, but it's just thought we'd do something a bit different.
Are you sure you've not secretly hired Nemesis back just because we're at Bramall Lane?
Well, you have to wait and see till next Sunday, okay? But yeah, he'd definitely be one because that he was honestly, mate, he was wicked. But we'll see. I have reached out to him, but I'm not going to say any more on that. If he comes back, great.
Who's next on your list then?
Next on the list, I said there's quite a few. A couple of guys that we have had back during this run, but they've disappeared again. Nay, who I really like as the Cameron Faith character, who I think probably would have ended up world champion if he'd have stuck around. I think he was on the cusp. And Twos is another one who I like, is James McManus.
Yeah.
I know these guys probably all speak on Facebook on that, but I'd like the James McManus character. To be fair, I've tried to book him pretty strong.
Yeah, McManus and Fanatic. I mean, even when I was with them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that for me, I always that's one of the feuds I always used to sort of go back to a little bit was that McManus and Ishida one because you guys, I felt like he's fit really well, and it was easy to write like when you were together. And again, it's something that I'd like to revisit or do something different. But yeah, he was another one. Who I would like these guys to come back. Ollie, I think Ollie was when he was on fire as O'Callaghan was brilliant. I mean, these are probably obvious ones. I mean, some more kind of left field answers would probably be. Do you remember Cable, who did like?
I don't remember Cable, honestly.
He did like Dope Hunt Zero and Kenji Hidari.
Oh yes, I remember Dope and Kenji.
Yeah, they were. I really liked it. I mean, his promos were a bit mental. Like, I think he used to just kind of scattergun, sort of fire shots at everybody. But like, they were good characters, and I know he did this podcast, and he's got like the greatest voice I've ever heard in my life. Guy sounds like if David Attenborough could sort of reproduce with Morgan Freeman.
Oh God.
Like it was just like the silkiest. Honestly, the bloke was mad, but yeah, he was an American though. So it was always kind of I think he did a lot of his promos when we were all in bed and that. Like he was never really active on the threads because obviously different time zones and that.
There's nothing wrong with that either.
No, but do you know what? I'd love to have more people from. But I mean, the Americans are right bang into their Efedding, but they do it in a different way. Like I've been a part of a couple of others, and they do all that proper role playing stuff, don't they? That like Cobra. Do you remember Cobra?
Who came in as basically the American Badass Undertaker?
Yeah,
Like, look, everything. I mean, who came in? I know somebody did.
yeah, it rings a bell. But they write like proper promos out, like in like not in the ring or even at the shows. It's like at home or whatever, or in a hotel, and it's like an inner monologue. To be fair, it's pretty boring, but I mean they're right into it, so fair play.
Going back to the question of real life, though, has there ever been like? Well, actually, what's your wrestling history? I mean, what is your wrestling knowledge like?
Yeah, I mean, I've loved wrestling since I was a kid. Remember having like old videotapes of. I think the first videotape that I had was Survivor Series 1988. I was born in 90, but I remember my brother's a bit older and we had the tape, and it was the main event was like Hulk Hogan's team against Big Boss Man's team.
Yeah, that's a little bit before my time as well, but yeah,
I mean,
I know the main event.
yeah, I mean, look, I've been in WWE, I guess, or WWF was probably my main love, especially during the Attitude Era, which probably comes across in the shows that I write, which are quite chaotic and stuff like that. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I still watch it from time to time now. I know everyone's banging to stuff like AEW and that. I've tried, and it fucking really annoys me. There's just it's like just a bunch of gymnasts now. Like I think their storytelling is shit. That's me personally. Like I just don't think it's very good.
Personally, it depends on the story, but like I say, do you have any like? Have there been any like notable gaps in like? Okay, I've not watched wrestling from X to Y or anything like that.
I mean, I didn't. I think I sort of switched off for a while between about 2003, I think, which was after like Brock Lesnar was
Yeah,
massive, and then I didn't watch it for about 4 or 5 years after that. I have rewatched it now because of the WWE Network and stuff like that, but I don't know. Like, I don't want to sit here and go and like toot my own horn and be like, I know loads about wrestling, but as a geek, like, and I am, I probably do know quite a lot, especially
yeah.
WWE wise. Yeah, I'd say I know most of their history from the get go, to be honest.
Okay. Well, like I say, it was just a case of looking at the gaps as well. Because have any of those storylines, clashed with what you've ever written?
Yeah, seeing this question, I'm not. I don't know. It's hard because I think it was Liam that asked that question, and
Yeah, it was.
yeah, and one of the things that I've tried to be careful. It's difficult. So his plague character is very much sort of in the mold of more for me, and I've talked to Liam about this, like Bray Wyatt, who
Yeah,
for me personally, I consider probably the best storyteller maybe ever. God rest him. I don't think he got. I don't think WWE did right by him. Not really. I think the guy should have been massive. But anyway, I I don't. It's hard because we've talked about Liam. I've said it to him before. I don't want to almost live or channel what I would see for Bray Wyatt through Plague, but at the same time, so I don't want to make the storylines like exactly what you've seen in WWE, but at the same time, like I do like a lot of the ideas. It's like the stuff
yeah,
they're doing now, like that Wyatt Six and all that. I think is really good. But in terms of, I guess, if have I ever had anything planned that then I saw on TV and thought, we can't do that because it's like a proper rip off or it's too soon. I don't really know because I think I try and put my own stamp on everything. in terms of so that it's not exactly the same. So I think if there was, nothing jumps out. I had a real good think about it, and nothing overly jumps out. I mean, maybe you could tell me if maybe there is something.
Honestly, I've been thinking about it now. I think you've done your best to stay away from certain things. I mean, but it's just a case of just bad timing. I mean, like I said, you could have already written the show, and they've just done it, and they've literally do it like 2 days before you're supposed to post it.
Yeah. I mean, I think there was a time where we did a storyline. Might have been about 10 years ago now. When I was running things with Paul Mack. Again, shout out to Paul Mack, right? Because who did Lex Hart? Need to get him back as well. He did sort of. He came back a little bit, right, for the Exodus thing, but Paul is awesome, right? And Lex Hart, we'll get onto it, but Lex Hart's my favorite character throughout all the years. I would really like Paul to come back, but I digress on that. We'll get back to that. But yeah, they did a storyline, I think, in 6CW where it was the authority. Basically, I think the guy, Mr. Jones, and that took control of the show. But they were genuinely called the authority. And I don't know which one came first, because I know WWE ran exactly the same storyline with Daniel Bryan and against Triple H and Stephanie. And they were
before that with Cena and all that. I mean,
yeah, and they were called the authority, and so was the 6CW version. And I genuinely don't know which one came first. I think that's probably about as close as it's come to something which is almost mirror image, in some ways. But it's hard. It's hard at the same time because obviously creatively, I mean, there's very few ideas in any kind of media which are completely and utterly like unique. So you're going to borrow stuff from that sticks in your mind from things that you've seen, whether that's wrestling based or TV or out of a book. I mean, my shows and my writing are influenced by so many different things.
Okay, would you like to share any of those influences?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Game of Thrones. I think you can pull quite a few different things out of that. In terms of how they, well, it's very gory, isn't it, and very bloody, a lot of backstabbing and stuff like that. But I think, especially early on in Game of Thrones, it got a bit. I don't know if it lost its way. I don't know if it ever did lose its way, but obviously the last series wasn't as good. But I like the story progression. You know, and kind of that's one I would say. Others are, so we're doing the Blue Dragon Logan Kincaid storyline at the minute, and obviously they're based around out of a crime family. So I'm a massive fan of like The Sopranos and The Godfather, and stuff like that. So I try and pull little bits out of that, you know, because obviously they're brothers. I know they're monsters and that, but they have blood ties to one another. And yeah, I mean, it can be anything, mate. Honestly, genuinely, it could be anything that influences me. Marvel, anything superhero. Like I'm dead geeky with that, so I like Batman and stuff like that. Like, I think I've spoke about this before. There's a lot of characters, not direct rip-offs, but there are a lot of characters that we've had where I've probably ended up putting a bit of a Batman sort of Arkham spin. So we did Clark James, obviously, was with his Scarecrow mask. That was a big thing. And Miss Jessica, who is like a bit Harley Quinn, definitely, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we can definitely see like character spins. I mean, Engel Harlequin's a prime example of this.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that. Again, I was listening to these podcasts from a few years back that they did when Pete was presenting them, and I think he voiced that he wasn't overly happy about the fact that we kind of portrayed him pretty much like the Joker. And I get it, but it's hard because in my head, I like to have a picture of how I see a character. Like with every single character that I have to work with, I picture them, and it might not necessarily be who you guys think on your. When Liam asks you for your picture base, you might
Yeah.
have an idea, but it's not always the same in my head. And unfortunately, with Engel and Pete, I think everybody's seen the Joker. Like I don't think it was just me. I think like most people probably thought this like Heath Ledger out of Batman. Like that's
Yeah.
how I seen it, and that's no slight on him. I don't think he was ever ripped because he said he came up with the idea years and years and years ago. So I don't think it was anything to do with that. But in my head, I kind of see it like a compliment because I think that Heath Ledger performance was absolutely spot on as the Joker.
Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant to watch in cinemas.
Yeah. I remember watching it, in the cinema, and he stole the show. And for me, when I was trying to, I don't know if I ever got the full handle on Engel, and I apologize to Pete if he ever feels like we didn't do him justice or whatever. But it was hard because I had real high hopes for Pete. I wanted to make him a world champion. I wanted to center the show around him. I mean, I know he had a lot of other stuff going on, and he'd disappear after a few months. But I think after listening to him, it sounded like, I might be completely wrong, but it sounded like he was a bit disgruntled. Maybe that we hadn't utilised him properly at times, which, I try my best. I try my best to, but I guess you can't please everybody.
I mean, like I say, it could be a case of just like he could. I don't know. Do you remember when Matt Bourne was in old school ECW?
Yeah.
Maybe he saw himself like that. Like I say, I'm just purely speculating here. I've got no clue. Maybe he saw himself like that. I mean, that was really well done for the time.
Yeah, and this is it. Look, I've now that I'm older, a bit more mature, I like to think I kind of reach out to people more now and try and talk to them about their characters because I want to get it right. Maybe we didn't do that as much back in the day as we maybe we could have done. See, I don't know if you remember during like when it was COVID and that, there was hardly anyone. We were running 6CW and there was hardly anyone about. And I had loads of fun personally because I basically just wrote a show. I mean, I don't think hardly anyone was from, you were, I think Gazzy was because that's when I started hinting at that whole storyline with you guys. But I thought I wrote an absolutely brilliant story to do with Engel and Miss Jessica. And basically that they'd known each other since they were kids. And he was like infatuated with her. Which is why we brought about the earlier last year when we did the Liam Wood Engel storyline. And the match was an I quit match. And the reason that Liam got Engel to say I quit was because he threatened Miss Jessica, not because he could hurt Engel, because he couldn't, but it was and I tried to make him more human. I think that was the problem sometimes, is that like you couldn't hurt him, so it was hard to. So I tried to find a different way. I thought it was a really good storyline personally, but
when I read that, it kind of reminded me of what was it? The Mick Foley Ric Flair I Quit match ending.
Yeah, with Melina, there was probably some element of that to it. Yeah, it was kind of like there was nothing that he could do to Engel. Like he battered him, and the way I wrote the match, he probably broke his bones, and there was but Engel kind of gets off on that. Like he gets off on the main thing, so he had to find something else, and it was like I thought it was quite intricate the way I sort of, not to pat myself on the back, but I quite like that storyline. That's one of my favourites of recent years. Unfortunately, because Pete, I think, had ducked out by this point again. I didn't get his opinion on it. Maybe that's why he ducked out. Maybe he hated it. But Liam liked it, so at least somebody.
Yeah. Speaking of storylines and that, how often do you think ahead? Are they set in stone, or does somebody come in with a great idea at the last second and change it completely?
Any storyline can be changed. Any storyline in my head. Put it this way: when I first started doing this whole booking and that, so I mean, I think I started 2010 or something like that. Might have been even before that in 6WF. I used to actually plan it out like a lot, almost 12 months. I'd do a 12-month plan. And then I soon came to realize that that's ridiculous because people leave and, you can't set things. And I think I tried to stick rigidly to it. And that's why sometimes maybe storylines didn't work quite as well because I was adamant that that's what we were going to do. And then, yeah, but now I'm quite fluid with it. So obviously the next pay-per-view is Beachfront Brawl, which is the beginning of September. So I know the card for that. And in my head, I've got a rough idea of what I'd like to do at Born in Fire, which is November. But then after that, but even then, that's not set in stone because I've changed my mind. Like I wrote down a card for Born in Fire the other day, but I think that's the third one I've done. So yeah, things can really alter, especially then if you get a message or somebody might come back and then you've got to change everything again.
Or somebody new could join and set the absolute house on fire.
I mean, I would love that. I would love to get some new people, like genuinely new people who've never ever done it before. Like, because I still think there's a market for what we do at the end of the day. Like, whether it's a geeky sort of interest and stuff, there must be people out there. Like, I know the world's kind of changed and moved on, but I fail to believe that there aren't another bunch of kids like we were finding a place like 606 back in the day who wouldn't get some kind of enjoyment out of what we do, because I think they would. I genuinely think there must be some kind of new era of this out there. It's just finding them, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit I went to the University of Derby as a creative writing student.
Yeah.
I came back to this purely to see how much better I could be and see if I can improve on anything.
Well, you have, mate, haven't you? Like, with all due respect.
Well, I've tried. I have my ups and downs, I personally think, but I think there's a lot better people than me there at the minute.
Yeah, but how consistent have you been, like, over the years? Like, for me, that's a massive thing too, is consistency. You might think, I'm not the best guy, or if somebody does their best promo, I'm not as good at that. But it's not always about that. Like, obviously, last year, we put the world title on you. I genuinely think that was a really, really good decision. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on a podcast here with you. Like,
yeah, I mean, like I say, I do have a couple of minor qualms with it, but like I say, if you've read through my promos, you know what they are.
Yeah, no, I get that, but like, and you can still have issues with it. So obviously, well, let's air them. Let's air them. Not like genuinely, it's not an argument. Like, I want to hear them. Tell me some stuff that you weren't happy about, because I like to know.
Well, it's one thing I was not. It's like, okay, I get it from a story perspective, but like I say, I posted this in promos. I mean, especially when I started quote unquote talking to myself.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, just regards to, I think I only ever had like one clean defense.
Right.
That's the only issue I've had. I think I only had one clean defense. Somebody else had to interfere. Somebody had to save me. That is something. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah. You're not hey on that, and do you know what? Like, I think going back to what I said, I am at times, I guess, influenced by what I liked when I was a kid, which was like growing up with the Attitude Era. There was a lot of interference. It doesn't always make for, well, it's not clean, is it? It's not clean finishes and stuff like that. And I get that. And I guess for yourself, it can be disgruntled. I mean, I think your cleanest defense was that against Grace and Reborn. I think that was.
No, I think that.
Oh no, Gazzy got involved in that as well, didn't he?
Yeah, I did. I think honestly, it might have been the one defense I had against Johnny Oko on the
Oh
random
yeah,
on a random show.
yeah, Johnny Oko. Yeah. Did what about did you beat Dubs clean?
Did I even face Dubs?
Yeah, you did because it was on that Desert Storm show that we did.
Oh yeah, I speaking of Dubs though, rough just off
All
tangent
right,
for
go
a second. I did enjoy. He's one of the few people that basically goes when I read his promos, it's like, right, I just want to verbally kick his ass.
Yeah,
There's no disrespect against the person entirely. It's just a case of he has that kind of thing that basically goes, right, here's a fire lit under me, you're gonna get it.
yeah. See, I mean, it's one of the me and Dubs. I don't know if it's kind of common knowledge or what, but we've never we don't get along. Like we've never clicked ever. Like when he first came to 6WF, I remember I was one of the top guys, and I think he always wanted to have a feud, which I would have been down for, to be fair. But creatively and stuff, like we just, yeah, we've never ever hit it off. Now we've never had a full blown like disagreement, but I think we're just two very very different people. But I agree with you as per the character. I was a fan of the character.
Yeah,
And I genuinely think there was a time in 6WF where they could have made him world champion. And I think because he would have been so hated, like you said, as the character, that whoever went over him as a face, it would have really, really done them wonders because it would have been one of them moments in real life where the crowd were just so happy to see him get beat.
yeah.
He was a proper heel. Some people try and be too. I get it, but like when people do heel now, a lot of people want to be like a cool heel,
Yeah.
which is grand. Like I can work with anything, me, but it's hard because some people have the opinion that heel should be a heel, like he shouldn't be cheering like a bad guy or whatever. But and with Dubs, I think he had it down to a T. Whatever how we got on personally or not, like as his character, he was brilliant at writing a guy who's like you said, everyone wanted to kick his head in because that's how his arrogance came out in his promos, like, and he was good
Honestly,
at it.
continue. Sorry.
No, go on, mate. Sorry, what are you saying?
I was saying, literally, it's a case of I wasn't even in a feud with him. He'd literally just come back, and it's just like just that like first or second proper promo. It's just like, right, I want to beat your ass.
Yeah, yeah, he was good at it, wasn't he? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, he was, and this is the thing. I mean, he messaged me. I don't want to. I'm not trying to like put anyone one on blast, but he messaged me a couple of months ago. We were still kind of had him active on the roster, but he wasn't promoing a lot. And he basically just messaged me saying, you can write my character out. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But like, I would like to. I have these ideas that I'd like to put in place. I'd started sort of hinting at them in the shows that he had a list of like ex 6CW people who he felt had like brought the company into disrepute, and he was trying to get even with them. But he wasn't happy with. He's never really been happy with how I book him. I don't know why. I don't know if he thinks I don't put him high enough up the card or whatever. But it isn't that case. It's just for some people, it's about finding a feud that clicks. And even though I've just paid him a compliment saying that he's a really good heel, it wasn't always easy to find somebody to go up against him. Like you would have been good.
yeah,
Like I think your character, or like a Gazzy, I guess, who's like a real baby face. But it wasn't always. I mean, maybe we should have done the JJ and Dubs feud, but the problem was that I'd be booking it, and then if I went over it, it'd look like I was just putting myself over. And at the same time, putting him over me isn't a problem because I've put plenty of people over. But it has to be right. Like, I don't just want my character to become somebody who just puts everyone over. Because at the same time, I'm still promoting, and I don't think that's another point of contention. I guess, you know, should somebody who's booking the show, should they have a character? Should they be winning things? I mean, everybody's got a different opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to come across as somebody like, say, a Shane McMahon type. I mean, when he faced the Miz, it's like, what's going on here? Why are you even here?
Yeah,
But then again, you don't want to be just seen as. I mean, if I was the booker, I would be itching to write stuff for myself.
yeah,
That's the kind of balance I can kind of understand you've got to try and do.
yeah. I mean, you're spot on in it. It's because look, we've all been there in terms of. So even I remember when I wasn't in charge, early days and stuff, kind of, and you'd think, oh, if I could book my character, like this is what I'd like to do, and you know, and it is kind of like that. But then it's a hard one, especially with, you know, I can tell you 100 stories like about my personal kind of inner battles with the booking. So even the beginning, so last year when we were booking the two first world champions, and you went over Clark James to win the title, and then Marty Helms, I put over Tyler Roth to win the other title. But in reality, mate, I should have I should have put the belt on my own character. Like, and I know it sounds big headed, but one, I was promoting all the time. Plus, it would have given someone a good rub, I think, beating Roth to win the belt off him. It was hard. I think Marky hinted at it once, whether it was a sort of veiled dig, but because Helms had been so good a couple of years ago and he never became world champion, I kind of felt like we could put the belt on him because he'd earned it, but he'd earned it in the past. Did he really deserve it then? I don't know.
You could make the same argument for me.
No, it's different. I don't look. Yeah, you did great work. You know, during the COVID era and before, the feud with Engel, that was a really good feud. You know, where you basically got your head kicked in, but you know you kept coming back.
I still remember the finish to that.
You might have to remind me on the finish.
The last shot was basically Angle with a baseball bat going through a crowd and hitting me straight in the head.
Yeah. So that's what. So the idea, I think, behind that story was to show that, you know, one, you were tough.
Yeah.
But you know, sometimes you don't want to sound like I'm some sort of like old know-it-all from the business, but like you don't always have to go over to get over. So it's like for us, it was making you into it. I think that pushed you up the card without you having to win every fight.
Yeah.
You know, which it's one of them.
It's the Mick Foley thing. It's a case of losing elevates, losing proves. Randy Orton and Edge are the two prime examples. Two fantastic matches where he lost. He made the other guy look amazing, and he got credit from it.
Yeah, I watched. It's funny you mentioned that because I watched his interview with Stone Cold the other day on the Broken Skulls podcast, and he basically said that. He said, like, if somebody's going to work with him, he's going to make them look amazing. Like, and he did. You know, he did it with Triple H back in like 2000 when they did the street fight and the Hell in a Cell.
Even back in '97, he did it with Triple H with that the Full Count Anywhere match.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I mean. I get everyone likes the character to win. I'm the same. Like, of course, you would like your character to win, but you're not going to win every fight. Like, I can't book everybody to win every fight. But I try and make people look pretty decent. I mean, I take on board your criticism, whatever, about your run as champion. Could it have been done better? Probably, mate, to be honest. You know, maybe a couple of clean wins might help.
That was my only issue with it, and I'm fine. Like I say, I incorporated that into my promos and all that. I mean, Oh, anytime you had me against Marty Helms after the first time we ever fought, I have always incorporated it into my promos.
Yeah, look, and I like your promos. I mean, you say that I'm all right or whatever, but the thing is, you always reference things. You know, I like that because I reference things in the shows. You know, you don't forget. Whereas I feel
Yeah.
like it used to really bug me. I know in like WWE where they pretend that these guys hadn't fought one another before, or
Triple H Undertaker at WrestleMania.
yeah,
That
really
irked
annoyed.
me.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what I mean? Like I remember that match at WrestleMania 17, and it was a really good match. And yet then they pretended like, oh, they
It
had
didn't
three.
happen.
That winds me up. That's why even in the shows I reference things that I remember. I'm having a bit of fun at the minute with the JJ and the Saint segments, and I'm mentioning stuff that we did back in like 2008 and stuff because you do that with your own friends in real life. Like, oh, I remember that time, even if it was 15 years ago, you wouldn't just pretend
Yeah.
it didn't happen. But yeah, I think I've strayed off. First, I was talking about booking characters, my own character. Yeah,
Oh yeah, I was actually gonna lead you into a question, but I'm not sure if you've answered. Basically, speaking of characters and all that, if you could take over somebody else's character and run it or promo and run as them, I mean, who would you do it with, and what about it makes you wish? Well, basically, I'm asking, can you do it better than they could?
Hmm. That's an interesting question. That I don't think I could do anybody's character better than they could. Personally,
I can understand that, but like I say, because it just feels like to me it wouldn't be them anymore.
well, exactly. That's what I mean. I might have my idea of your character or somebody else's, but I didn't create that character. Like, I know it might sound really cheesy, but I think there's something quite, if you've created them, they've come from your own mind. Can anybody really ever get a true handle on that character? I mean, I think very few talented people could maybe do it. I think case in point, I would probably say again, Miss Jessica. I don't know who created her originally because she was knocking about right at the beginning. Because I think she had a baby with Hero, and I remember there was a match. I think I referenced it the other day, but there was like a paternity test on a pole.
Oh
One of River,
God!
yeah, it was a River Ace classic that, but with Asa, about who was the dad. So she was knocking about like way, way, way back. But I think when Demon got hold of her and he started promoing with her with Cassius, I mean, she took on a life of her own. I genuinely think she's one of the greats. Like nobody actually owns her, but I just think it's like I brought her back now with Genesis, and it wasn't even a hard decision to make because I just feel like she's just that good.
Yeah.
She's like the ultimate heel. She genuinely is. But yeah,
Would you say that it's just because the kind of character that legitimizes somebody? Like if she's with them, they are more legitimate than they were without her.
yeah, 100%. Look at who we've put her with. Saint, Cassius, Lex. I mean, we put her with Scorpion as well. But I mean, what do you say about that? No, I'm joking. I really like Bull, and I think he was coming on leaps and bounds. But I think the idea of putting Jessica with Scorpion was to sort of help him get over. It
Yeah.
didn't. But yeah, definitely. I looked at. I think I made reference to it when I brought her back with Kent. Was that originally she was going to be a part of Genesis, the original Genesis, with Lex, and then I stopped writing 6CW, so it never happened. And I just think we're looking at something different now with Genesis, and we've wrote out Tyler Roth and Michael Sweetwater's injured at the minute. That's how we've wrote it. So there's only Kent and Rex, but obviously they've got their
they've got their issues at the minute.
Yeah, so bringing Jessica in was kind of the idea that, well, to be fair, I brought her in for a number of reasons. One is to help Kent, but obviously if you read between the lines of the last show, I'm not going to give it away, but she's creating even more problems already, like between Rex and Kent. So that's the whole plan. But yeah, to answer the actual question about, I wouldn't take over anybody's character. I think there's been some phenomenal characters, and I think the roster that we've got now is full of great characters. But I don't personally believe that I could do any of them better than anybody else. That's just me. I mean, I don't know about yourself. Like if you could take over somebody else's character, but I don't think I.
I'm sorry.
No, go on, mate.
I mean, literally, the only time I've ever tried to utilize somebody else's character is about a month or so ago when I did that promo in the hospital.
Yeah.
When I had Cassius and Hobo.
Yeah, see, I like that. I like that promo. That was good.
Yeah, I liked it as well, but like I said, I didn't want to stray too far. I basically just wanted them to portray, okay, this is who they were to me, because Hobo was one of the original guys who was paired with me, like back in the long old days. I remember teaming up with the producers as well, and obviously Cassius is basically the guy who broke me.
Yeah. 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 No, do you know what? That was one of my favorite promos of yours. I remember you sending it to me. Kind of have a look over it, and it's not that I was like shocked or anything, but genuinely I thought it's different, but it's good. And I'm glad you've added the Hobo context for me, because I was unsure, but I still thought it worked as a promo. But I wasn't sure about the history. But
I I remember teaming up with Hobo and the producers early on, so that's where I realized, hang on, wait, this is the guy this is a person from my past who I can pray, who actually has not screwed me over in the slightest.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. No, I get that now.
Yeah, and obviously,
anyway.
Sorry, go on.
No, go on, mate.
And obviously, the only person who I also said this entire thing to was Marky.
Yeah,
because I portrayed Max, because I wanted Max to be like, because Max has been both sides of the fence with me.
Yeah.
And since he was still an active character at the time, I just wanted to basically go, right, is this something you would say and how you'd say it?
Yeah, no, I get that. And I mean, the Max and Ryu thing, I mean, it was hard because I would have maybe liked to do more with that before Max retired, but
honestly, I mean, like I say, I have actually left the door open for this. In one of my early promos when I first became champion, I did leave the door open for you.
Yeah, I know you did, and I can't remember what show it was where I almost had a segment where Max was struggling. It might have been when they were doing the war games.
Yes, because I think I know the one you mean. I was on the roof and I threw up the Project X symbol.
Yeah, and I was at that time I hadn't decided that we were going to retire Max, which I know sounds mental, but Marky actually let me do that. There was nothing. He never messaged me and said, I want to retire Max. Like, he wasn't even in on it. Like, I retired Max, which seems mental when I think about it, but it had nothing to do with Marky. Because he told me he didn't want me to tell him what I was doing in the storylines. So yeah, he just kind of let me have free reign on that, which was it was hard. I'm appreciative of that, and so to me, Max Adamson is the greatest character. Like, I think he's in terms of accolades, etc., he's the best ever. Like, hands down. I mean, Cassius, and you can talk about me and Hero and that, but I think as a character, I think he's number one.
Didn't you say Lex Hart was about half an hour ago?
Lex Hart's my favorite. Lex is 100% my favourite, which has got me into trouble in the past. But Max, for me, if I was going to rank them, now obviously this is all kayfabe or whatever, but if it was an actual ranking system of who would be number one, he would be number one.
What about Mount Rushmore? If you pick four people, who would you have?
Seen this question, yeah. People will get really annoyed. Like, you're never ever going to please everyone. So what? Because the question says a modern one, does it, and an old one?
If you stick me on either of those, I'm ripping myself down off your Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, I mean, you're a good guy, but
I'm not that good.
Okay, I wasn't going to put you up there. No offense, because I think
not taken.
Look, for longevity, though, mate. You deserve a lot of credit because you've been around. I don't think you've had. Have you ever had a long break from this, guy?
Yes, I do have a quick story about this because I had a break and somebody who was on my Xbox friends list messaged me and said, right, we're starting up again. Would you like to come back? I've got no idea who it is. I can't remember in the slightest, but I've got to thank them for it because that's what brought me back to my the run before COVID.
Well, that's mad because I thought you were always there.
I need a break and somebody genuinely messaged me on my Xbox.
Well, I'm glad they did because for me personally, this second run then since has been your best, hands down. Since then, and the COVID stuff and all that.
Anyway, back to your Mount Rushmore because I don't have one.
So is this do I actually have to pick 4 people who from the beginning to now who would be on there? That's a really, really hard thing to do.
Let's start with the easy one. Let's go with the modern. Let's go with the modern era, which is I'm going to assume just before pre-COVID.
Right. So the modern era. Well, that's only a few years, isn't it? So it's not as hard to do. I don't know. It might be harder because I think of the modern era. So the last 5 years, say 4 or 5 years. Even though he's never won a world title in that time, I'd probably say Liam Wood. Because he's just we all like Liam, don't we? But it's not
his quality is up there.
Yeah, well, the thing is with Liam and I've talked to him about this before, in the same ilk as Gazzy, is that I know from a booking perspective that I can give them anything, and they'll do everything they can, and they'll run with it. With Liam, we just spent the last 12 months basically feuding with people that weren't even promoing, about a redemption kind of storyline arc about him getting back to the people that had tried to ruin his career, and he made it work. So yeah, if it was a modern era, I'd probably stick him there. Same with Gazzy. I mean, Gazzy, I'd be hard pushed not to put him on the all-time one, but definitely Gazzy's one of my guys. He's just a quality character. I mean, he's a sound bloke in real life too, but he is. I mean, I've been booking him now 14 years. People forget what I took over 6CW just after Night of Glory when he became world champion for the first time. So I can't take credit for that. I can't take credit for putting that belt on him. I think that decision was already made. But people forget that he was actually the original. Well, he wasn't. He was one of the original leaders of Genesis, which people seem to forget. Then they attacked him and they put him out, which was all part of the grand reveal.
Well, considering how long some of us have been around, I completely forgot I was a tag champion
with Logan Kincaid.
Yeah, I completely forgot about it.
No, I remember it 100%.
I'm glad you do.
I'm not going to get into it too much, but I was actually looking the other day at people who had history with Logan, and that's all I'm going to say because I was having a little think about things. But so yeah, because I remember you were the 6WF tag champs, and Genesis and we went into Born in Fire, I think it was, and we did a tag team turmoil, which was teams from both companies, and they were undisputed champions at the end, and Genesis won. I think they beat you guys last in it. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I remember. Like I said, mate, I'm a massive geek. If I could do this could be my subject on Mastermind. I mean, I know quite a bit about. Or remember. I don't remember everything, but I remember.
Especially the subject, the company that I ran.
Yeah, exactly. So
Back to the original question, though. Mount Rushmore. You've got Gazzy, you've got Liam. Who are the other two modern slots?
It's a tough one. It's a tough one, isn't it?
I mean, I just want to put everything Marky does under a third slot personally, because everything he touches just works.
Do I have to pick a character, or can I just like put Marky's face up there on Mount Rushmore? Because I mean, the bloke
might as well put Marky's face up there entirely, because I think he'd go on the classic one as well.
I mean, look, I've asked Marky maybe a fair few times over the years with his characters. I mean, a couple of them. He likes the comedy characters as well, which is sound. I mean, I've got no problem with him bringing Percy back. I was quite behind it, actually. He said it was a one-off because that was at Night of Glory. He came back meant to be a one-off against Dubs, and the only reason that happened, this little bit of information, the only reason that match happened and that Percy's back full time now is because I messaged Demon. You remember this guy that I've asked to come back a few times already on this podcast? I asked him to come back and be the surprise opponent for Dubs at Night of Glory, and he didn't answer. I asked Marky, I think 2 days before Night of Glory, and we got Percy, but I'm glad we did. But yeah, Marky, he did Triple D. Do you remember him? Duke Dillon, the bad guy?
I think it was just at the tail end of very tail end of my first run, I think it was.
Right, well, I loved that character, and actually, another bit of him, he was the actual original leader of Genesis. That's a bit of trivia for you. And yeah, so Marky, his face would just be up there. Like you said, it's not. I can't pick one because I love Rex now. I think he's an absolutely phenomenal character. We're having a lot of fun with that. But Max, it's just the TA, who were probably the best tag team we might have ever had. And then we made Jackson so good they named him twice. He was world champion because Marky can just do that. You know, like,
yeah,
I've just got a random tag team and then we'll split them up, and then I'm that good that I'll just make one of the characters a world champion. Like, that's what he can do, which is why we all rate him so highly, I guess.
And to think, when I spoke to Marky literally before last pay-per-view, me and him were arguing, were basically saying he thought Percy was going to get eliminated first, and that's why I basically put in my predictions that Percy will not be eliminated first.
Yeah, see, again, when I was planning that match, I think it was, I don't mind doing the obvious things, like some people try and steer clear of, oh, it's too obvious. No, sometimes, as long as it's wrote well, you can do the obvious thing, and I think the obvious thing, everybody thought Percy go out first, but I'm trying to get him over a little bit now. Like, that's the difference.
Yeah,
he's a bit of a comedy character, and I know Marky's having fun, and Liam's brought back Brandon Perez now, and I think they're just using them for a bit of downtime or whatever. But at the same time, like, there's no reason that we can't sort of present him as a bit of a threat. Like,
you mean like an R-Truth type threat?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly, because R-Truth is a big comedy character, I guess, in WWE now. But, you know, I know that he was Ron Killings and he was the NWA World Champion. And
yeah, but we know he can be a serious because in one of the Saudi shows, oh god, it's the one where Lesnar beat Ricochet in like 20 seconds.
Yeah,
Truth is in a gauntlet match. I think he got to the final two, where it was him and AJ.
Well, there you go. Yeah, exactly. So it's doable, isn't it? I mean, this is the thing about characters, I guess. Anybody, and I might be putting myself on the spot here, but there's not a single character. I've been made to eat my words on this. There's not a single character on that roster right now who I don't believe I could make you all believe was good enough to be a world champion.
I'm trying to think if that's actually possible. I'm trying to think if I can actually disprove that.
Like, I don't believe. I mean, Liam did this promo last night for Brandon Perez, which had me in hysterics. And I jokingly said, you know, I might put a world title on him because it was so funny. But then when I thought about it, right, I genuinely believe I could create a storyline, even if it was just for a day or a week. I could create a storyline which made it realistic if he became world champion.
So I'm just reading through it now, and it's just like, yeah, I completely understand why you. Yeah,
yeah. It's a really, you know, and these are comedy characters. I'm sure Liam never has, and he probably doesn't think he'll ever be world champ. Same with Marky, with Percy. But the idea is that if you get the right story, you know, we can make it fairly believable. I'm not saying it's ever going to happen. I'm not saying it's never going to happen. I've never been one to overly book comedy characters, which I think is why I have different ideas and opinions with things over the years. You know, some people absolutely love trash TV. I thought it was exactly that, like trash, like, and I know it's a controversial opinion, but it wasn't for me.
Well, comedy is subjective.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's what I mean. And them guys obviously were probably good at what they did. And obviously River was running it at the time, and he thought they were the absolute, you know, he thought they were brilliant. So they all got top spots. But for me, all of them, so Demon with Cassius and Enforcer when he got away from trash TV were much better. Like, but you know, that it's one of them. That's just me. I don't think I've always been great with the booking of the comedy, but you've got to have a bit. I guess you've got to have a bit of lightheartedness and.
Yeah, and so like I say, you can't just be serious and craziness all the time. There's got to be some fun in it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, not every. I guess if you're gonna have, say, if you're going into a pay-per-view and you had 7 or 8 feuds, you know, you don't want every single one of them to be bloodthirsty and dead serious. You know, you've got to switch it up a little bit. So I think they bring something, maybe a bit of light relief, depending on what we choose to do with them. You know.
Looking at comedy in serious situations. I mean, the one thing that honestly springs to mind is, do you remember the tea party Sheamus had with Santino and Kozlov?
Yeah.
That to me is just, I find that absolutely hilarious.
And yeah, and I get that, and I guess for me, it's all right me saying. I think it's just my booking. Like, my favorite ever wrestler of all time is The Rock. Like, and he was mostly a comedy character. Like, most of his promos were steeped in comedy. You know,
him a comedy character. I would just say his promo style is more like just like he knows where to hit. I mean, obviously he's only truly quote unquote buried one person.
Yeah,
and that was.
Yeah,
I wouldn't call The Rock comedy. I mean, to me personally, comedy characters, you're looking towards Santino, you're looking towards R-Truth, you're looking towards guys that, I mean, William Regal.
Yeah,
can do comedy brilliantly, but you know he can murder you in an instant.
Yeah, but I liked Regal. I mean, I'll be honest, I get what you're saying. I mean, I couldn't stand Santino. It used to drive me insane. And when I can't remember what year it was, but he went to the last 2 in the Elimination Chamber.
Yeah, that was 2012,
and it drove me insane. Like, I was so glad. Obviously, he got beat. I think it was Daniel Bryan that beat him.
It was Bryan who beat him. But
I think I don't. I think there's certain bits of the comedy that, if it's like backstage or whatever, or you know, in the ring, grand, like, I can get on board with that. But when he was actually winning matches by fucking jabbing people with that fucking puppet on his hand and that. Like, there's no realism in that for me. That's not real. It's not believable.
Yeah. Another man putting a sock on his hand and sticking it down under somebody's tongue is a realistic threat.
Well, it is, isn't it? Because it's a legitimate. It puts somebody. It can choke you out. Like,
yeah. I suppose technically it is a nerve hold, but
somebody
literally,
just stabbing somebody in the chest like that, like just with his fingers, with his stupid snake puppet. Like I said, yeah, it's objective, but for me, it isn't. And I wouldn't.
comedy matches. I mean, prime example of this. I think it was William Regal versus the Big Show, and Regal brass knuckled Big Show. Show bounced off the ropes and fell on Regal.
Yes, yeah, but again, there's a hint of realism to it, though, isn't it? Because he's a big bloke. Like, if he lands on you, it's game over. So I can still, even though I might not book that, like, I can get behind it, but I can't get behind something daft like that snake. Like, that's just me. I can't do it. But yeah, again, I'm good at this, going off on a tangent. We were talking where we Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, we have one slot left.
Yeah, so this one's a tough one. Simply because I think it would be down to two. And one of them is active right now and one of them isn't. So, I mean, it's easy to say the one that's active because at least it keeps him in a good mood.
You stuck Marky up there and he's got three.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't not put Ed up, though, like Eddie Kent, because he has to be the other guy, because I think we've broke the record. He's the longest reigning 6WF world champion ever. So if you're just going on character, achievement alone, the fact that he's literally held that belt longer than me, Cassius, Prime Lord, TGA, like, that's enough. It's enough to put you up there, because he's literally, if you just went off purely off stat, he's the greatest 6WF champion there's ever been.
I'd also argue his promo work is up there.
Oh, look, like,
I mean, he's got that. I mean, admittedly, there's a tiny little step to go, but I think he knows where that step is and he's saving it.
Yeah, look, Ed, I love Ed, right? And me and him have been, I booked him. I don't know where we found him. I mean, people probably been asking that about Ed for a long time, but
probably in a dustbin somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know how it sort of came about, but I remember he debuted in 60W when I was running it, 2011, and I think it was within a month I put him in Genesis, and it was just like, it just fit straight away. And from then, so I don't know how old he is now and how old he was then. He was a teenager then. He's only young, but it was obvious even at that stage that he was going to be really good. And the Mr. Kenty character was brilliant. And he was learning his trade. That was the whole thing with the Genesis kind of storyline. And he was learning his trade under Lex, and they had Jackson Black, who was like the best wrestler. And yeah, and then he went obviously to 6WF. He became world champion, didn't he? And he's been progressively getting better and better, I think. And then he didn't use the Kent character for a ridiculous amount of years for whatever reason. He's tried a whole load of others. I think Aaron Heath, Damien Onyx, who I actually really liked. It was like a vegan character who was like a better than you. He was a good character, but he's come back since last May when we kicked everything back off. He came back as Kent. And he
went from Mr. Kenty to Eddie Kent.
Yeah, and honestly, he's just on the money. Do you know, everything? One thing I love about Ed is his enthusiasm, because, like, I mean, I think I could write a show where, he just gets his head smashed in by everybody, and Ed would still probably tell me it was a great show. Like, and I appreciate that, because, at the end of the day, I'm writing a show, and he shows his appreciation because he enjoys it. And I think whether he was bottom of the card, top of the card, whatever, he's having a good time, which I like. But it isn't that because he's just that good. It wasn't my favorite feud. I think from last year, maybe. I don't know. I had a couple because I think that's one of the questions that I'm sure we'll get to. But with Scott Harris we ran that through the year on and off. And then it was a last minute decision to put him in the Elimination Chamber where he won the title. And I think a lot of people thought, I think Cerberus was in there. Just a shout out there for Cerberus. He was my other potential for the Mount Rushmore.
I'll stick them both up there.
Yeah, because Nando, again, shout out to Nando because we love him and we'd like him back because we're all Cerberus and that. So he was another one on my list earlier of who I'd like back. He's a big one, like, because Cerberus is one of my favourite characters. I'm not, again, trying to pretend I didn't say Lex Hart before, but Cerberus is right up there. But yeah, Ed, I mean, he's just... I love his promos. I love what he does. He does things differently. It's not all the same. He tries to do comedy and seriousness, and he changes up the settings, and they do the whole sort of evolution stick, with the suits and they did a promo out in the desert. I think when we did the Las Vegas pay-per-view, and it was brilliant, and I could picture it. So I'd have to put him up there because, yeah, I think right now he makes my decisions very hard at the minute, to be honest with you, Ed. Because obviously he's the world champ, well, one of the world champs, and he's embroiled in a feud at the minute, obviously with Liam, who again is brilliant. And then you've got Marky with Rex sort of in the middle of it, who again is absolutely brilliant. And some people are thinking maybe should he be champ? Should Rex be champ? But it's hard at the minute to think about. Do I take the belt off Ed because he's just so good? Like, it's not just. Don't get me wrong. It's not all about one thing. But I genuinely think his character at the minute and being the champion, they just go so well together.
Do you think are you in the position where basically you've got that much good quality up the top? If you basically change it around, you might upset the balance.
Yeah, because it's not a terms of. Don't get me wrong. It's not like in the past where if I took the belt off Ed, it's not that I'm expecting an urgent PM or anything like that. Like, I don't think, like I said, I don't think Ed is bothered where he is on the card. So it's not an issue of taking the belt off him because I'm worried that he might leave because other people have done that in the past. They get the belt and then when the belt gets taken off them, all of a sudden they don't want to play anymore because, they're not the top guy. It's not that. It's just, it's such a... if I try to look at it from the outside, I'm writing it, but I read the comments every week and when we do the shows, and it's just such a good storyline. I have so much fun with it. And I think even now we've probably only sort of got beneath surface level of where it could go. And them guys, like, I think we talked about this before, but what you want is people to gel, like, because once people start gelling with their promos, you're winning, and they're all so good together. Like,
yeah,
Rex and Liam, like they're shooting off one another now, like, and it's great. But it's like at some point you can do a triple threat feud. Don't get me wrong, like, but
somebody has to win, somebody has to lose.
Yeah, and everybody, you have to have a big you have to have the one-on-one payoff. So then it's like, which payoff do we do first? And if we do that first, does that mean we can't do the other one because it unbalances it? Like you said, it unbalances the situation. If I take, just hypothetically, we do Liam and Ed and say Liam won, So Liam's the world champion, but Rex has still got the briefcase. But the whole thing is like, are people expecting Rex to cash that in on Kent? And if Liam takes the belt and he doesn't cash it in on Kent, does that ruin the storyline that we've been building? I mean, it's hypothetical because you all think that Rex is going to turn on Kent, but is he?
Yeah, you kind of got like what was it, the Brett Luger Yoko situation.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. See, I mean that's the case in point. I mean, obviously Luger never really bounced back from that, did he?
No.
And he was super over as well. Like before that, like when he power slammed Yokozuna and stuff, like he was he was over. Like, and they had whatever you might think of him. He was like the red, white, and blue baby face. And
He was the next Hulk Hogan that eventually didn't work.
yeah, exactly. And it all started at that point for me as the character, especially WWF. He wasn't seen as really as legitimate anymore, which I think is why he ended up, obviously, apart from all the steroids he was eating. I think he was never going to be the main guy there after that. Whereas I know it was hard because Brett was brilliant as well, but did Brett need it as much? Brett was the best. Brett was the best wrestler. You know, Brett was phenomenal, and
Yeah.
did he really have to go over Yokozuna? I'm not so sure. I think if Brett had gone over Lex down the line, it could have been a better thing. I don't think he had to beat Yokozuna personally, and I was a massive Bret Hart fan. But I think if I'm putting my booking hat on, I'd have maybe had Luger go over Yoko.
Brett still goes over. Does Brett still go over Owen? Don't forget that the Brett Owen Yoko situation was all one night.
Yeah, no, I know it was, mate, and obviously, yeah, you had the Owen Hart, but then I think they messed that up as well. I mean, it's easy for me to say, but I mean, Owen at that time was that he had some serious heat. Like he probably should have had a run with the belt. But I mean,
so would you have put Owen over Brett?
Yeah, because I don't. Thing is, Brett was it's a hard position to get into, right? But once you're there, Brett could have lost every feud, but he was the best. Like again, it goes back to the sort of not needing to go over to get over. Brett was he was the guy, like regardless, and he was going to be in the main event. And because he was so technically sound and he had all the submissions, he was believable. I guess even against Yokozuna, it was believable because he had the submissions. But I think if you put Owen over, you know, and he was the heel at the time, and you put Lex over, I mean, that could have been a decent feud for a while. But then obviously Shawn Michaels is in the mix, and it's easy for me to say, you know, that was probably a difficult situation for them. I find myself
especially what happened with Brett the year before.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously they had a Hogan, and he fucked everything, didn't he? And I think that's another issue.
Hogan for you.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously in our EFED world, I'm not saying we never have had anybody like that, Saint. But he knows I'm only messing. That's my guy.
Okay.
Saint, he's an absolute legend. If I had like a make believe EFED best friend, it'd probably be him. But I know he got some stick over the years for going over in situations where people maybe thought he didn't. I think that's bullshit because I think he's one of the best. But Hogan. I think Hogan swore a lot of stuff, and I don't think we have that. Not so much.
Going back to an actual question off wrestling, actual real wrestling, what guides your decision when it comes to basically a championship changing hands like this? I mean, I'm not saying this situation, but it's a case of let's just say, oh God, I don't know, I didn't come back. Who would you have put the belt on if it wasn't me?
Clark, CJ, Beer, probably would have gone over. The decision with that was tough at the time because in some ways, obviously, in my head, I wanted to do this storyline with him and me,
Yeah.
which was supposed to be like a year in the making. Or it was longer than that. It started during the COVID. Again, if everybody's not read my shows during COVID, you should do because they're absolutely wicked. But when we started down the track with Clark being a heel and like a really vicious heel, was always going to be the payoff that we wanted to do the big match with me and him, because it goes way back. Like, he was my mate when I was feuding with Cassius and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
so the idea maybe would that he'd have gone over and he'd have lost the belt somewhere down the line before facing me. I'm not saying he'd have lost the belt to me. Oh, God forbid, because we know everybody would have kicked off at that. But I think if we'd have put it on him for a little while and then taken it off him, potentially, but I think it worked better with him never having it again and you going over. Maybe we would have had to think of maybe somebody else, maybe Scott Harris as a face potentially could have gone over. But again, I'd probably be accused of favoritism because that's Saint's character. But I mean, it's never been like that. I don't put titles on people because I get along with them.
Yeah, I mean, but like I say, what comes? I mean, let's just say, well, going back to your question.
So the decision-making process, yeah.
What guides it? It's basically what basically says, okay, this person A needs to lose to B.
Yeah. It's not an easy process because, well, not always. Sometimes it's clear cut, as in terms of it might be night and day. You might have a guy who's a champion, but whoever he goes up against in a feud is just hitting out the park compared to them. And you think to yourself, they should really be going over here. So, and you want to add to the legitimacy, even if they're pretend titles, you want them to look legitimate because we're writing a show at the end of the day. And so that can be a decision. But other things factor in, and this goes back way back to my beginnings, learning from people like, don't want to say I learned a lot from River, but you learn little bits and people help out, and sometimes that has to guide a decision too. Like, so,
wasn't there a championship? Sorry to change this, but wasn't there a championship committee at one point? For God, when was it? Cassius held the belts. And it was, God, I think I remember you telling me you were the only person who wanted me to have the title at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a time when, again, I think too many chefs can spoil the broth.
Yeah.
And when you're throwing ideas around, too many. Don't get me wrong, I've worked in teams on this booking stuff before. Some of it's been great, some of it not so. But I think the problem being, sometimes you got too many people with too many different ideas. Whereas obviously myself now, I'm just the guy that makes the decisions, so I don't have to run them by anyone else.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I'm always right. With, like I said, I've already, case in point, I don't think I probably should have put the world title on Helms last year. I know, so I'm saying I should have put it on myself instead. But I think if I'd have put it on myself, even for a couple of months, it would have. We ended up putting it on Ed, like from the Elimination Chamber onwards. But he never beat Helms. It was just because of the jeopardy of that match. Obviously, anybody can win the title, and it suited Ed's character. But I think if I had put the belt on my character and I was active and I was promoing all the time, it might have put somebody over, beating him. So there's a lot of things that go into it. I mean, I know back in the day, if somebody wrote a lot of matches, for example, like River used to get a lot of people to write the matches for the shows, and sometimes it might be like a reward. I'm not saying that's right, but like what that did used to happen. Like, so if somebody was helping out a lot with the shows, or like Liam does all the posters and stuff like that, and I know Lee used to do all the drawings for 6WF, which were absolutely wicked as well. They might get a belt,
Yeah.
again. it's hard because I'd be lying, and anybody be lying if you say that you're always going to put the belts on the best person, like, because it's not how storylines work. It's not about. And plus, I don't really care. Like, people say about, oh, my character, maybe you should have, I should have won more. You should have had more world titles. That's just me. Like, I just say that to myself in my own head. But belts are second to. I like a good feud. Like, I like a good.
Story first, championship second.
Yeah, and I think sometimes I look at characters and I'm like, did he need it? Does that character actually need to be champion? Which, again, I mean, he's probably going to hate me for saying it, but that is part of my issue at the minute with Liam. Does he need to be world champion? I mean, it's a hypothetical question. You're an observer. Do you think he needs to be world champion?
The case, honestly, I think with the quality of work he's done, I mean, it's not a case of does he need it. It's a case of I think he deserves it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
he's put his. I mean, it's like going back to my situation. Before I eventually won. Do you remember how many singles titles I actually held before winning that world title?
I think you held 2.
1. I had the European title for 1 month.
No, you held 2.
What's my second singles one, then?
Sorry to history here, but actually you were the 6CW United Kingdom champion for about 4 months.
What the hell was I doing then?
Got the title list up here. Yeah, so
I completely have just retconned this out of my own sanity.
During COVID, you held the UK Championship from the 12th of April 2020 to the 31st of August 2020, which was 141 days, and you lost it to Robin Reborn.
Okay, that COVID era, yeah, I kind of get that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was a strange time, wasn't it? But
no, it's the fact that, God, I just honestly could not remember that we held the UK title for 4 months.
You were embroiled, right, in a again, nobody will ever go back and read these because you're not as geeky as I am, but I did a triple threat match between you, Reborn, and Liam Wood, and I think it's one of the best triple threat matches. It's like Triple H, HBK, and he who must not be named at WrestleMania, right? Like,
yeah,
it is that. It's like that. Like, I'm actually going to mention him, Benoit, because at the end of the day, he was a wrestler. But
yeah, Benoit, good wrestler, person.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit, wasn't he? But he was a phenomenal wrestler, and I can still watch that, but it's a bit tainted now. That was one of my favorites, and that ending to WrestleMania was one of them sort of perfect ones with him and Eddie, and it's a bit, obviously it's tainted now, but yeah, that was a good time. So yeah, you actually had 2 singles reigns, mate. But still, yeah.
Going back to the point now, I think it's a case of, like I say, I think he has earned it.
Yeah.
Personally, but there's plenty of people who have earned it at the same time. Like I say,
yeah, you're right. But this is, again, I know it's a me problem because I'm Booker, right? It's something I have to deal with. But you're absolutely right. You say about when you won the world title or whatever, and you didn't know whether did you deserve it. Were you getting it for your work before? There might have been an element of that to it, because for me, you deserve to be rewarded for 16 years of consistency, of
on and off 16 years,
of always being there, mate. Like, whether it's the first match, the second match, whatever, and you always got stuck in, even if the feuds or the storylines weren't always great, or and that has to be taken into, and the character you have to take into account. I'm writing a story, and for me, it was a bit of an underdog story. I mean, going into that match, if I was watching that on TV personally, I would have been thinking, there's no way this bloke's going over Clark James, right? Because like Clark's the big heel, and
you had him basically murdered me the show before.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a bit there were elements of like the Eddie Guerrero, Brock Lesnar kind of thing. Not stature, because Clark's slighter than Brock, but in terms of this guy, nobody's seen Eddie unless you read like the dirt sheet and that. Nobody. I remember watching that fight, and I was like, didn't know Brock was leaving at the time.
Yeah.
There was no way that Eddie Guerrero was going over Brock Lesnar, and it was a massive shock when he did. Even with Goldberg getting involved, which is weird because Asa got in the ring and speared Clark James to help you win as well.
Yeah, I had to remind Asa of this recently because that's the only line I could remember of our history was that one line which I think it was you put in about the 6WF TAW war. I remember nothing of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really because it was before I was there. But I know that you guys sort of, again, I'm a bit of a history. I like to hark back, and I know that you had crossed paths, even if it was very briefly. And I just feel like that wouldn't not be mentioned. Like, you guys know one another, in the story, even if it was 17 years ago or whatever. So you would make mention of that. And that's why I put you in a tag team this week. People, there's always a little thing. People don't always know, or maybe they're not sure what I'm doing. But for me, it might have just been because you thought, oh, you faced Perfect Jack, and he had the rivalry with Riley. But for me, it was Riley and Jack used to be a tag team as part of Revolution, and you and Asa have got a long history. So it was a proper team versus team thing, but and it might be something we look at in the future.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was nice to promo. It was nice to promo with him, even though I'm trying to tweak my style a little bit. But like I say, it's just
Yeah, well, me and you need to have a little discussion, I think, away from, obviously, so we're not giving away the show.
Yeah.
We'll swap some messages, because I think I know, obviously, what you've got coming up.
And like I say, I've never actually questioned anything you've done.
No, I know you haven't, and I'm not saying that you are.
No, but I'm just saying I like to go with the flow. I think I've only ever asked you once, basically saying what the hell's going on, and you still wouldn't tell me.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me. I don't really like to tell people, because I like that, when you're reading a show, you want people to sort of be surprised, I think. But I think it'd be good to sort of just get our heads together with maybe just the character in terms of what you want going forward. And I think it's important for, again, if anybody listens to this, they're welcome.
Well, they will. We've been going nearly 2 hours.
Yeah. They're welcome to listen, to message me, and because I like to tweak the characters, and I like to do. I want it to come across like you would like to see your characters. Like, I read the promos, like I actually genuinely do, but sometimes I guess I might misinterpret certain things, and it's not always easy to book somebody's character probably exactly the way they'd like it to be.
Yeah, I can understand that.
So yeah, we can discuss on that.
Okay, speaking of characters, though, I think we may have touched on this a little earlier, but if there's one thing you could change about a current or legacy character, what would it be and why?
Ooh, do you know what I wrote down on this? I actually wrote a note to myself about this, but it seems really self-indulgent. I'll give you two answers. Okay, so I'll give you a personal answer, which is me, and I wish maybe we'd have tried a heel turn at some point for JJ, because I think it'd be fun, because I could basically just say everything that I wanted to say.
I swear JJ has been heel before.
No, I've never ever. I think I'm the only character who has never been a heel.
You're speaking to possibly the only other character whose heel history will never be remembered again, ever. No.
Yeah, when you joined Project X, you were kind of a heel, weren't you? So
it was a young, stupid kid.
Yeah, but that's still a proper heel turn. Like, I think for me,
I consider that a heel turn. I consider that being manipulated by a superior man.
I remember it. Everybody else might not remember it, but I remember it, so I'm classing that as a heel turn. I don't think it lasted very long, but
No, I think Max kicked my ass like a week later.
yeah. But yeah, I've never turned JJ heel. We've done feuds where we had mixed crowd reactions when I feuded with Dicey, but that was obvious because you're not going to get universal love against Dicey. Like, there's no way that any crowd, the way he's portrayed, is going to 100% be for me or 100% be for him. And he went over the knobhead, but he deserved to at the time, 100%. I'd like to revisit that maybe at some point because I feel like me and Deck have always had a pretty good gel. But
didn't you just announce that the character is retiring next year?
Well, it's only July 2024, so we've got what?
You're pulling a John Cena.
Yeah, pretty much, and I'm gonna have a lot of fun with it, to be honest with you. But I'll say no more on that yet. But yeah, I mean, so I sort of flirted.
Who's the second option?
Right, so this is a bit of a spoiler. Not spoiler. Is it a spoiler? What would you call it? No,
I'm gonna briefly put a spoiler warning here just in case.
It isn't a spoiler. It's like some information that nobody ever knew about. So, because it's not going to happen now. But so the Genesis storyline, and I know I'll come back to it a lot, but it is my proudest work, right? And it was a unique situation, which I don't think we'll ever get again. But anyway, so we had the plan. I say me, and I said plan, but that's loose because we had to change it a few times around the way. And then we did the big reveal of Lex Hart being the leader of Genesis, and it was amazing. Like, and I don't just mean my story writing was amazing. I mean, like, everything clicked. It's one of them situations where, because we had Keith Leone, again, another shout out, CJ, if you ever want to come back, crack on, because he's amazing. I know Dicey mates with him, so like, if he wants to get him to come back, happy days.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had great chemistry, and obviously we had Kenty and everyone involved. We had so many perfect Jack, and honestly, Gazzy came back and he was part of an Engel. It was such a good story. And the one thing that nobody ever knows, like nobody, I've literally never ever told anybody this. So this is a big, big moment. Maybe not. So I basically took all the plaudits for years because, what a great story, Genesis, and they've got such longevity because they came back in 6WF and Alex Walker, and now we've got them again. And the Lex Hart reveal, and because he was in a tag team with Dicey at the time, which was like the big stab in the back because it was, I thought he was a face and all that. And all the pieces fit together because earlier that year, I'd wrote Lex out and he went over to 6WF. And basically, the idea was that he'd attacked, I think, the 6CW general manager at the time, and he got fired or suspended or whatever. And then he came back, and he was a changed man, working on his temper, etc., and all this kind of stuff. And then that's when he got in the tag team with Dicey. And so all amazingly, when you read back through the storyline from start to finish, it actually falls into place really nicely. Like, I planned the whole thing and I didn't, because what nobody knows is at the time, Jeff Steele became world champion. He beat Gazzy to become world champion. And he was like the ultimate babyface, kind of John Cena. As it progressed, the storyline with Jeff was that he started to... We did Born in Fire, and he defended the belt against Keith, Leone, and Blue Dragon, because they co-won the Gold Rush Battle Royal or whatever.
Yeah.
And Genesis, Leone was about to win, and Genesis came out, and they stopped Leone from winning the title. And then I think Steele got a sneak pin on Blue Dragon because he was already knocked out. And the whole thing was that because Leon had been talking about this conspiracy, which led to the Lex Hart thing. But the conspiracy was never meant to be Lex Hart. Basically, long story short, Jeff Steele was supposed to be the leader of Genesis, right? That was going to be the massive story. Okay. So the idea in WWE that John Cena was supposed to, everyone wanted him to turn heel, and he just wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to do that storyline basically in 6CW, where the almost John Cena of 6CW, which was Jeff, was going to be revealed as the leader of Genesis, which for me was going to be such a good story. And the thing that was going to be so, in my head, it was really clever, because Genesis went deliberately, well, it didn't seem like they were deliberately helping him win matches because they were attacking Leon, but he was benefiting from it. And him and Leon had faced one another for the Extreme title at the previous Night of Glory. So 12 months later, when the reveal had all come about, was that they were going to face one another, almost like a full-scale story round, that they'd face each other for the world title, and Steele was the leader of Genesis and all that. And then in, I think it was January, Steele messaged me, and he was like, I've got to take some time off. So we'll have to drop the belt.
So long story short, you basically had fortune dropped on your lap due to outside situations.
Yeah,
and
pretty
you
much.
Came up with possibly what the best stable.
Yeah. So basically, I'm admitting here on this podcast, I'm probably knocking my stock down a little bit, but what is considered to be one of the best stories that we've had was just a fluke, because it was supposed to be Jeff, and then it wasn't, and then we had a vacant title, which is when I was like, what do we do here? We had Perfect Jack, and we had Jackson Black and Keith Leone, and then we had the vacant world title, and then we pulled this swerve, and he basically, Lex somehow, even though he's not originally involved in the match, walks out with a world championship. Then we air this video where basically he explains how he's manipulated the whole situation from day one, which was great because it all made sense. But it was never meant to be like that. It just fit, and it was brilliant. And apologies to anybody who might be upset, but that's the way it was supposed to be. And Jeff, mate, I'm sorry, because I think it would have been awesome. It was awesome anyway. It was better than I could ever have imagined, but it wasn't the original story.
Yeah.
So yeah, if there was, that's one change. I don't know. Would I change it though? The question was if I could tweak. Would I change that though? Because it was so good in the end. I think that's more of a what would have happened. What if Steele hadn't? Would it have been received as well as it was? I just don't know.
That's the right take. I mean, do you also consider that the best? I mean, do you also consider that the best face or heel turn you've done, or is there something else?
Oh yeah. So I actually wrote. But just bear with me 2 seconds.
Yeah, sure.
I did write this down. About the best face and heel turns. So to be honest with you, they're both the same in terms of that. Lex Hart is the best heel turn that I've ever done, which is probably why he's my favourite character, even though it was a fluke. But still, the fact that everybody bought into, because I paired him with Dicey, and Dicey, everyone loves Dicey, don't they? Do you know what I mean? And the crowds love him. It was so easy to turn Lex heel, sort of betraying Dicey's trust. Because basically it's like, it's just the ultimate sin, doing that to everybody's favourite superstar. And then obviously we had Dicey, ended up costing Lex the title. at Night of Glory, that should have led to a really good feud. But like I said, I packed it up. And same flip side, the best face turn was the Keith Leone, because I ran that over like a year, which is mad. Because again, I wouldn't have been able to do this. I can't take full responsibility. Don't know how well. Do you remember? You remember CJ that did Keith?
A little bit, but again, my memory is quite hazy with Keith Leone stuff.
Right, I think his real name was Jack, but he was absolute. Honestly, he was so good. And him in the summer, we did a feud with him and Dicey, which was one of my favorite feuds I've ever done. An extreme feud where basically they kicked the living shit out of each other, like brutal. It ended in like a Chamber of Horrors match, and Leon did like awful things, and he attacked Dicey's family and everything like that. So you'd never think, if you're reading them and you'd like, there's no way that we get to next year and this fella's going to be the biggest face in the company. But it was a bit of a CM Punk kind of thing. Like, basically we had a show, and I think I don't want to say I ripped it off because I didn't, but the idea was influenced by Punk. We basically had a bit of a pipe bomb. Leon just let him loose on the mic, and he started talking about Genesis and this conspiracy, which was all supposed to be about the big reveal with Steel. But anyway, because strange things started happening and people realizing, oh, this fella's telling the truth, actually, the crowd started to get behind him, and it was kind of a really organic face turn. Like, we didn't have to force it. It just kind of happened. And it worked. So, yeah.
It's like a Rock 98 situation.
Oh, what, mate?
A Rock 98 situation.
Yeah. So, obviously, they did the Deadly Games, didn't they, at the Survivor Series, and
Deadly Games where he became a natural heel. Oh, sorry, I'm thinking 99. Sorry, Backlash.
Oh yeah, so they booked him, hadn't they, against Mankind, where he was just like hammering him with that chair. I think at the Rumble, and he was the heel, and then just organically the crowd were. I think the more times they stuck him on the mic and that, and he was talking, it was just the crowd were just starting to get behind him, weren't they? And
then it all built up to the crescendo of the Raw after Backlash, I think it was, where basically the corporation just beat him down.
Yeah. See, that's what I mean. Sometimes, even though I know it's fictional, what we're doing is you still got to make it real in terms of, and it's like a believable thing. I think that's what we did with Leon. It was like the crowd are just going to start getting behind him, because for whatever reason. One, because he's so good in the ring. Two, because he's speaking more, and the stuff he's speaking about is kind of resonating with people. Which is, in a similar kind of way, without giving anything away, is where we're at the minute, I think, with Rex. Some people obviously are not going to like him. That's the way I look at it. He's like a young, cocky guy. But at the same time, like, there's a touch of like Brock Lesnar a bit in 02. He's just so good, and he's so at such a young age that I remember watching Brock when he first came in, and I've never seen anybody do stuff like that. Like,
definitely. Brock 2002 Brock was a monster.
Yeah, and like from the get-go, they were booking him against like top guys, and he won King of the Ring within like 2 months, and and he's champion by SummerSlam, and we could have done that with Rex, and I thought about it. He faced you, ended in a DQ finish, and and it wasn't to do with you, but it was to do with not even about putting the belt on Marky, because I had no issues with that either. I think it was. I don't know how much you remember, but basically, I was the guy that made the decision many moons ago to put the belt on Tyson Armstrong in 6WF.
Oh God, that was a long time ago.
Yeah. And then I've read over the years that people actually genuinely believe that I was Tyson Armstrong, which I genuinely wasn't. Like, nothing to do with me at all. I genuinely, he was some bloke from Scotland, and he was dead good. And I had this idea that we'll do an undefeated streak, and it lasted about 6 months, and then I stopped booking, and then they got him beat because nobody was happy about him being undefeated or whatever. This was at a time when people took this way too seriously, but they weren't happy that he was going over all the time. And the idea was basically I was going to book him all the way through Born in Fire, and he was going to become world champ. And he did become world champ at Born in Fire, and he beat Crime Lord. And then the fella like stopped promoing, like pretty much after that. Do you know? And it became like a thing, like almost like a curse. You know, this is why we don't do this. Like, we booked the fella for like a year, pretty much. He's won everything. He's beat everyone, and then within a month he was gone. And I think, but it wasn't like that with Rex, or it hasn't been like that with Rex, because I know Marky, and I know Marky's consistent, and I know that he's around. So I have no problem. I mean, Rex still hasn't been pinned or submitted. You know, we're over a year. He's still not lost. So he is undefeated in singles.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's lost tag matches, but he's never lost. But I think the crowd would be behind him. And I think Genesis, what we've done with Genesis now is they're a bit DX-like, I think, in a term. I think some people are going to like them no matter what, even if they're heel, because it's a bit cool in it, you know. Like, I can imagine.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Fans wearing their gear, and I think Rex being associated with them. I think some people like him anyway. Some people are not going to like him. But I think I think organically as a company, if this was a real life wrestling company, Rex's face turn would just naturally happen at some point. Now, when that point comes, I can't tell you. Or if it does come, again, I can't tell you.
Obvious reasons.
Yeah. I think some people thought maybe it was coming at Scars and Stripes. I don't know if you thought it was. Did you?
I honestly thought it might have.
Yeah, I was enjoying that, writing that. I was starting to get pumped and a bit excited myself, because I was like, it's weird, and I know I sound like a right freak, but I was imagining being there live, and I can feel the crowd sort of, and they're right behind him cashing that in, and I was like, we could, but is now the right time? Is this the direction? I don't know. I mean, personally, right, I'll ask you a question.
Okay.
Would you have Rex cash in the contract on Kent, or would you have him cash in the contract on, hypothetically, because he's got the belt at the minute, Blue Dragon?
Honestly, for storyline purposes, and this, I'm going to put a hypothetical to you. Eddie basically just pushes him 1 point too far past the limit.
Yeah.
I can see Rex smashing him in the face with the case, and then just cashing it in with the Kent's blood on the case.
That's quite a good visual, actually. I quite like that.
I get credit if you do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of them. I rewatched the other day. Sort of.
It kind of reminds me of. Sorry to interrupt. Kind of reminds me like Sammy and Roman.
Yeah, there's that element to it. Absolutely. The one that it reminds me of, I guess, in some ways, is I rewatched it the other day. Is Triple H and Batista.
Oh yeah.
And obviously, Batista's been doing Triple H's dirty work for like 2.5 years or whatever, but he's starting to believe in himself, which in the end leads to him absolutely annihilating Triple H.
It was the fact that Triple H was manipulating things so Batista would go to SmackDown that caused Batista caught on.
Yeah, and obviously we've done little hints in the shows recently about Kent trying to get Rex to cash in at the end of 6 CW World Championship matches, because, you know, Plague had been battered or Ghazi had been battered, and it was like, why are you not cashing it in? Why are you not cashing it in on Blue Dragon after he won the casket match?
Yeah.
So there's elements that I take from stuff like that, but I'll be 100% honest, right? Because there's no spoilers. I genuinely haven't decided what to do, because I think there's quite a few different ways that we can book it and tell the story, and I haven't. I think in some ways it sounds really. I don't want it to be bad, like, because it's so good up to this point. I think the problem with so many TV shows and films and stuff like that, like, and I am a bit of a perfectionist, but the endings are always shit. Like, they're always a bit of a disappointment. It's like, it's always almost a surprise when something finishes really well. Game of Thrones is a case in point for me, where I thought they just really rushed the end of it. And after you've sort of given them 8 series of fandom, and then it's like, what's this shit at the end? I don't want that for it, because this storyline, like, I didn't plan this. These guys were just so good bouncing off one another. I'm like, fucking hell, this let's put these together, because marking.
You're just letting them see how far they can go, and you're just enjoying the ride.
Yeah, I genuinely am. I'm like a fan. Like, you think, oh, he's writing it and that, like, but I'm like a fan. Like, I'm invested in it, and I'm thinking, how do we get the best possible finish to this? Because if it's a shit finish, it kind of ruins everything that we've done up until this point. And I know you get some people saying, oh, it doesn't matter. The finish could be... No, for me, the finish has to be right. I'm a perfectionist. I want it to be something that we can all look back on and go, no, that was brilliant. Like, that's what we wanted. And I think that's where, I don't know.
I mean, it's got to the point where the story is so good. I mean, do you feel like your best finish you can think of would be a letdown for it?
Potentially. I think that's the problem, because I've thought of 3, 4, 5 different ways it could end. And in my head, I kind of like them. I like most of them. But then I'm like, I don't know, it's like when it comes to an end, it's like, yeah, it's that idea that it just won't be what you thought it was going to be. And I don't want that. But at the same time, it's like, we can't take it forever. One, because the contract's obviously got an expiration date. So we can only carry it so long anyway. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard. Maybe this is where...
It's an interesting conundrum to leave you with.
I mean, yeah, because it's one of them, mate. It's because, like I said, Liam's I don't want to call him a third wheel, because he's not, because that would sort of intimate that he's not part of the story. He's a big part of that story now. Like, he's not on the outside looking in. He's a very legitimate person who I could put the belt on. But then, like I said earlier, how does that affect the rest of the story? Because Kent and Rex, the whole dynamic it's not just about it, but a massive part of the dynamic is that world title belt. Like, it's everything to Eddie Kent. Like, that's the way it's brought. That's like a part of him now. He is the 6WF World Championship. Like, they are one, and he is. It's almost like, for me, the idea that he's brought in Miss Jessica is almost another way of him protecting that. Like, it's another, because he's lost Sweetwater and he's lost Tyler Roth. So it's like, how do I protect this belt again? And he's brought her in, and maybe he might add a couple more things to protect that belt. I'm not going to tell you whether he does or he doesn't, but it may be in his thinking, because obviously him and Rex are having some trust issues. Is he going to start thinking, I need more?
Well, do you mind if I put a suggestion to you? And this is purely off the cuff.
Yeah, go for it, mate.
Think of how long
Triple H v HBK lasted from the end of 2003. How long did that go for?
What, when they first feuded?
From 2003.
No, they first feuded 2002, wasn't it?
I know, but I'm considering 3. I'm saying 3 deliberately.
Right. So,
HBK won the world title. How long did he and Triple H feud overall?
I mean, they were still in that triple threat match by 04 WrestleMania.
They went further.
And it went to Bad Blood, wasn't it, in that Hell in a Cell?
Yeah. That's the thing. That's something maybe you could look at as like a possible idea.
Yeah, so it went, it was years, wasn't it? Because, I mean, even if you go off the fact that if you started it even, I guess, at SummerSlam 02, all the way to Bad Blood in 04.
That's literally nearly 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've got no problem with that, because believe me, I think we could do the Kent and Rex storyline. I think it could be a long, and obviously they dipped in and out and they feuded with different people to keep it fresh and stuff like that. But it's the title belt is what I don't know. It was still kind of always like it was with Triple H at that time, and I know they said that he pulled a lot of strings backstage and that, but his character almost became synonymous, didn't it, with that belt? Like, they'd do anything to make sure he was champion.
That's why it's called the Reign of Terror.
Yeah. And obviously when he went over Booker T and that, which was ridiculous at the time, and I just don't want it. Like I said, for me, it's an internal battle where I just don't. I feel like it could end up being the best story ever. It's that good. I just don't want it to be shit. So.
Okay, let's go for a final question then. This one, it's probably been done, but I honestly can't remember at this point. Is there any point where you've just literally gone, where you've dropped the ball, and it's just like, oh God, what have I done? And you haven't been able to recover it.
Right. So this in terms of something that we booked or something that we should have booked that we didn't book?
But in terms of actually booked.
Right.
And by dropping the ball, I mean stuff could have happened outside of it. It doesn't have to directly be your fault.
I mean, yeah. So let me have a little think.
Okay.
On that, I think there's certain things where we've probably made decisions that, or the wrong people maybe have gone over in feuds because we felt like they would go further, but then in the end it was like the other person who probably would have carried it better. But it's a hard one because it's not that I don't think. I think one of the ones that probably stands out to me, I don't know if you remember this. Again, it's a bit of a history lesson going back. Is there was a feud in 6WF that we booked where they were called the Association. Again, I know we've done it to death, which is why I'm trying to stay clear of it now. This whole dominant stable taking over. I think we've done it too many times now. Personally, I think.
Okay.
I don't want to do it again. We kind of hinted at it with the Exodus thing, but it was never ever going to be a full blown company takeover. I always had an idea of pulling it away from that. We've always done these massive stables, haven't we? Like Genesis and the Authority and all this. We've done it a lot, and it's great. It can really work, but I just think, we need some fresh ideas. But anyway, so this Association storyline was in 2010, and we actually brought Hobo back as a heel to be the guy who was fronting it.
Yeah.
At the time, going back to me being like a massive geek and a Batman fan, no idea why, mate, but I pitched the idea and we actually ran with it. You probably don't remember it. I remember it because the matches themselves were good. I pitched the idea that he would come back under a mask, which he did, but showing absolutely no creativity whatsoever. I just called him Bane, right?
Oh God!
Yeah, that I know. I didn't even try and change it. I literally just called him Bane. That was his name, right? And so, he was basically just a rip-off of Tom Hardy's Bane in Batman. And so he wasn't like a tramp anymore. He was like, he'd been away and he'd obviously been on the juice and that. Like, he was proper roided up and he was dead strong and that. And he had his, I think Mike Hill was part of he's another one as well, Matt. We'd like to get Matt back. Shout out.
Of course.
Matt. Yeah, because Matt's an absolute legend. But yeah, so Matt was part of that group, and I think there was Solomon Riddick, who was my character. Basically just talked in riddles, and I basically brought out all my history nerdiness, and we used to promo about like ancient Greece and stuff like that. And I think there was a Mexican kid, La Pulga Loco or something like that. I think he was part of the group as well. And basically it was like a takeover. They were taking over the show because Hobo basically he did a promo where he pretended that he was a tramp and actually he was like this multi-millionaire or something. So we kind of tried to run with that. Bit like a Ted DiBiase kind of thing, like using his money.
Yeah.
Which for me was like, yeah, it's a good idea. Not the Bane thing. It was a bit shit, but I think then what happened was, I don't know if I got cold feet or it just wasn't hitting the right spot. So we did the first ever Gold Rush Battle Royal Rumble, and Hobo was like, at the time, he was nailed on to win. Because part of the storyline was they battered Cassius, who was playing a bit of a tweener character at the time, and he was out injured. So Hobo was like guaranteed to win the Gateway to Glory or Gold Rush or whatever you want to call it, and he won anyway. So he was like, he'd won the match, so he's got a main event. Born in Fire as like the ultimate heel, and then we did a whole thing where basically Miss Jessica, of course, because who else, comes out at the end, and she's like, "Oh, it was very TNA style, but basically." There's one more entrant into the Battle Royal, and it was Cassius, which was the big shock because he'd been out for months, and he beat Hobo. And it was, for me, I was like, I like it. It's like, it's a good story in terms of, if I was watching that on TV, aside from the fact that I'd be looking at Hobo pretending he's Tom Hardy, but apart from that, like, I thought it was good. And the idea was to have this massive payoff at Born in Fire, but Hobo threw a massive shit fit, right? Because he didn't win the Battle Royal. I mean, obviously, over the years, he's proven to be a bit of a nutter, hasn't he? Outside of this, but
I personally don't know that. I mean, like I say, my only interactions with him have been basically just purely inside feds. So
yeah, well, I mean, look, I'm not trying to discredit a man because it was nothing to do with me personally. I just know that there was a big thing to do with the website and all this kind of stuff. But anyway, so he got in a massive mood, like people used to, about not winning feuds and that. And I think he basically just wanted to automatically, like overnight, just turn back into his old character. Which was like, can you imagine that on TV? Like, they've probably done it before in WWE, but it was basically
they actually have recently. They actually have I think it was a couple of years ago with Baron Corbin. Because he went from Bum Corbin to Happy Corbin back to the Lone Wolf.
So it's like literally on the pay-per-view on the Sunday or whatever, like he's in Tom Hardy, Bane, right? And he's like the ultimate heel. And then on the Monday night after he comes out in front of the crowd and he's like, "Oh yeah, sorry about that for the last 6 months, right? But I'm a good guy now, yeah, trash TV and all that." And it was, for me, it was a right royal fuck up. Now, I'm not saying that I probably could have helped it better, but for me, that storyline, and I think Matt, I listened to Matt talk about this on a podcast not too long ago, from a few years back. It was actually a really good story. Like, and if we'd have finished it and we'd have skated around the edges of the Bane ripoff and that, like, it would have had a really good payoff for a lot of characters because I think there was about 10 plus people involved. So whilst I'm not fully exonerating myself from the blame, because it was other people too, I think that's probably one of the sort of dropped clangers, because it should have been one of them stories for me that we remembered, and we don't, obviously, because you don't remember it.
No, unfortunately, I don't.
It should have been really good, and it wasn't. Apart from that, do I think we probably dropped the ball on characters? I don't know about storylines. I think we probably dropped the ball on characters.
Care to name a few, or I mean, it's up to you.
Yeah, GDC. Do you remember him? Grant.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, he should have been world champ. I think, without a doubt, at some point. I think he was the original creator of 6CW. But I think, maybe we dropped the ball. Going back, I know we spent about 10 minutes on it earlier, but I think we dropped the ball probably on Pete. I mean, he'd probably have to shoulder some of the blame himself for dipping in and out, but maybe we could have done that character a bit more justice than we did. I think, don't get me wrong, we've been going a long time, and most people have had a world title.
Yeah.
That's not the be all and end all, don't get me wrong.
Oh, no. Not in my opinion, anyway.
No, but I think, in the main, I can't speak for everybody else that's ever done this booking thing, but I'd like to think at the end of it, if there's such a thing as a legacy to our Efedding days, like, I try to do right by most people at some point, like, because you all put in the effort, right? Whether it's, and I think that's my big drive now. I can't make you all champion at the same time or anything like that, but I want to create compelling storylines, like, so that at least there's something for you to. Because you remember, if you remember back to when you were 6WF, mate, early days, sort of at the bottom of the card or whatever. I feel like a lot of them rivalries or feuds didn't really get any sort of development. It was just kind of like, well, they're the sort of lower to mid card guys, so it's just a throwaway feud. But I think every feud should have something, should have a reason. Like, even your match that you had at the last pay-per-view with PJ, I know it came out of nowhere, but for me, I try to, even though it's hard sometimes, I guess, with the segments, I try to tell a story of the fact that PJ had been part of Exodus with Clark James. Obviously, you beating Clark was the reason that his whole he spiraled out of control, didn't he? And PJ was like, PJ and Clark have always had this competitive thing. They were, I don't know if you remember, but they were co-champs. They had the tag titles, the international title, and the UK championships for over like 400 days as co-champions. They've always had like this competitive friendship sort of thing. So the idea that with PJ, even though his character's all deranged and twisted, was, well, Clark James couldn't beat this guy. So not only am I going to beat him, but I'm going to put him out because I'm better. Like, everything that he's failed at, like, I can do, which he tried. Obviously, he had the chair after he won the match, and obviously he got stopped. But that was the idea behind it, even though it was only a small sort of, maybe a one-off kind of pay-per-view. I wanted some kind of reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
I mean, it might not have been what you were, it's not the biggest story to sink your teeth into, don't get me wrong, but I mean,
no, I get it. It's just a case of it just felt a little bit out of left field for me. It's like, okay, right. I mean, would have been. It's just a case of sometimes little stories like need a touch more explanation just to help connect the dots a little bit more.
Yeah, I get that, and I sometimes it's difficult. I think it's what I've tried to start doing, maybe even with the sort of tweets that I do from the fake wrestling outlet. I try and give like hints, I guess, to why decisions are being made, so you guys can maybe use that in a promo. So, like I said, I did the tweet even about my own promo earlier, saying, JJ's retiring in 2025. So at least it's a kind of bit of information for anybody that wants to sort of clap back at me. So they'll be like, going into it, it's almost a bit of a note. I don't want you to go, I know, don't be obvious about it and go, get on the mic and be like, I know you're retiring at the end of next year. Because obviously nobody's supposed to actually know that in the story. But it's like, you have that in the back of your head if you're going to come out and sort of react or respond to me. I'm trying to do stuff like that, I think, a bit more. It's trial and error. Like the Twitter thing was a whole trial and error, but people seem to like it.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, so I try and incorporate a little bit of Twitter in terms of replies and all that. I mean, even if it's just mainly like little snarky comments, like the one I did a few days ago. I mean, I just put first time for everything.
Yeah, but you see, I like it because wrestlers wouldn't they? In real life, they do. You know, they respond to tweets like that. You see it all the time, and I think, yeah, again, it's that little touch of realism, and you know that could be the talk in sort of the back at the minute. Obviously, that news has come out that we've had a couple of these tag matches over the years where the belt's been on the line and it's never changed hands. But for me personally, if there was ever of the matches that I listed, which was Enforcer and Cassius versus Boer or however you name, and Prodigy, and then you had Enforcer and Max versus Scott Harris and Mike Masters. For me, this match, and the next show, even in like sort of kayfabe kind of way, is the most likely I've ever had a tag match where, I mean, are you 100% confident that I'm not going to switch the title in that tag match?
I mean, to be honest, I've got no idea what you've been planning, and that's what I like about stuff like this, because I can't predict the winner.
And I think that's why I tried to do the. Marky made a. I think he made a comment like, and it was in character, and then I put up a thing about the change in the rules, and I think he thought that I was annoyed that but I wasn't. I genuinely kind of sparked me into life thinking, no, I want to twist this match a little bit. So what I've done is now, just to add to the tension and the issues between Rex and Kent, is that they both can't lose. Only one of them. So if Kent gets pinned, he loses his world title, but Rex still keeps the contract.
Yeah, I'm just reading the tweet now.
Yeah, but if Rex gets pinned, he loses the contract, but Kent keeps his world title.
Yeah.
And so even though they're a team, the onus is kind of, do they want to really work together? Because Kent is so protective over his world title that he doesn't, deep down, he don't give a shit if Rex loses. Like, in fact, he probably wants him to lose. But at the same time, does he want him to lose? Because he doesn't know whether he can trust Rex or not, but he knows for a fact he can't trust Liam and he can't trust Chris Patrick. If one of them wins the contract, they're going to cash it in. He has no control over that. Whereas at the minute, he has a little bit of control over Rex, maybe. Well, at least he might think he does.
Yeah, I might think he does, but yeah, it's Rex.
So yeah, I mean that's the thinking behind that.
Right. One last little thing before I wrap this up, because we've been going 2.5 hours.
Happy days, mate. Yeah, absolutely.
Are there any questions that you want to put to me right now? I will happily answer.
Yeah. All right. We'll do. I've got another question that I want to answer after that, if that's all right. Because I remember Jeff asked me, and I did actually write down a card. He said a dream card, and I've got
the dream card one. Yeah. Okay, let's do that first, and then.
Right. Okay. So
dream
apologies
card.
to anybody that's not involved in this, but it's not a slight on anybody. Because what I did was I've got 10 matches, and one of them's a battle royal, which is basically just gonna have like a load of X.
It's gonna have everyone else in it that's not in the other 9.
Yeah, basically. So you're all getting a payday, right? So you're not off the card because you've got to have that, without question. So everybody, if I don't read out your name, you're in the battle royal, right? So that's just that,
Yeah.
So we're covered. Because there's loads of names, right, mate? This could be 30 matches long if I actually put on every single match that I wanted to see. So these are just the ones that jumped out at me. This isn't by any means. I could have done, like I said, I could have done 1,000 of these. But so fight 1 is Hardcore Hell, which is Logan Kincaid's creation. So we've got 6 people in it. We've got Blue Dragon, Cerberus, Engel Harlequin, Jeff Steele, Logan Kincaid, and Marty Helms.
That honestly, that just sounds like a banger straight away.
Yeah, like that's just gonna kill in it. Like I just think that match would be insane to write. I'm even tempted. I'm tempted to write this card. It's honestly it's so good. But anyway, so that's the kickoff. So the fans, it's brutality from the start. So then what I did was I've got 2 tag team matches, which then the winners will face off with one another later in the night.
Okay.
So I picked for me what the 2 best tag teams in 6CW history, which for me is the TA and the Red Arrows, which was Robin Reborn and Jack Hurst. Which I just think would be a real good tag match.
Yeah.
And the second tag match would be Crash TV. I know I said I wasn't a fan, but I can't fault the fact that they were a really good team. Hobo and Enforcer. And they're against Max Adamson and Chris Patricks.
Ooh.
Yeah. And then the idea would be that Max and Chris would win and they would face the TA in the final, which obviously Max created the TA, which I'm always thinking about the story. I just think it'd be a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's that. Then we've got, so like I said, we've got the Battle Royal. You can put that anywhere in on the card. So you'd be in the Battle Royal, mate. Just let you know.
I guess.
You might even win it. So
Depends on the other names. I mean, I'll probably be like final 3 or something.
yeah, you'd be right in there. So then what I did was I did 3 matches because it was asked me about the feds that I'd been involved in. So obviously I've created in my time. I've run 6CW, I've run 6WF, and I actually created EWF as well, which is where Liam first came from. Liam and Thunder. Thunder's another guy, by the way. Liam, if you're listening, right, sort your mate out because we've been trying to get Thunder back for years. Now, some people think Liam is Thunder. He claims he's not. So either way, let's get him back. But so I digress. But anyway, so what I did was I've got 3 matches. I've got a match which I would call like the 3 best EWF talents. So it would be like Mr. EWF or whatever you want to call it. So we've got Liam Wood versus Thunder versus Vincent Costello, which would be an absolute sick match, right? That should have happened anyway, like a night of glory. But Costello dipped in and out a bit, but he was wicked. He's another guy I'd love to have back. The 6CW one, I've got Daniel Riley versus Dicey versus Gazzy versus Keith Leone in a fatal 4-way.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, book that however you want because that'd be mental. The 6WF one, I've got Crime Lord, who's probably one of the best 6WF champions. Crime Lord, Mike Hill, The Saint, and TGA, who for me, they're all 6WF guys. I think that'd be a great match. Obviously, I'd book Saint to win because he's my mate. But
honestly, I'd give Mike Hill the win in that one.
But you know what? Mike's one of the best. Matt is so underappreciated because I think he was behind the scenes for so long, and he was like writing shows and running this as like a teenage kid in high school. So he's won like 3 world titles and that. I think Matt's, and I want him back anyway, but he is quality, and he might win that match. I mean, if you were booking that, he legitimately could win that.
Yeah.
So we've got 2 matches left. One of them isn't obvious. I book it no matter what. Can you actually guess what this match is?
It either involves yourself or Cassius. That's the only thing I can glance off it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you pretty much nailed it on the head. It is Cassius versus JJ. I just don't think you can have a dream card without that fight. Like, and the thing is, in another way, if Demon ever listens to this, yeah, just to egg him to come back, is that he's never actually beaten me. Okay? So I always beat you, Demon, right? Every time. I beat you every time. So if you want to come back and change that, you know what to do.
And I want to be the one who determines the result of that match, so there is no bias.
Yeah, I might put it out to a vote. You know, like we might do like a Fed vote for that. So then it's fair. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
And then I'm an admin on the site, so I could create like 100 accounts or something and vote for myself. But anyway, I wouldn't do that. Demon, if you want to, you want to duel, let's do it. And so then the last one, which I think would just be insane, right, is war games between Genesis and the Church of Hero, which I just think it'd be like, so it'd be 4-on-4. So you got Lex Hart, Eddie Kent, Jackson Black, Michael Sweetwater versus Hero, Marshall, Clark, and Rapture. And I just think, honestly, mate, take me money because I'd be all over that. Like, if we could have made that. And do you know what's even worse, probably, is that they actually ran at the same time, them two stables, Genesis in 6CW and Church of Hero in 6WF, and we never,
Jesus Christ,
we never crossed them. We never crossed them over, which is mad, isn't it? Like, that was the feud. That was a generational one. That we. I mean, if you say about dropping ball, actually going back to a question earlier about a drop ball.
I wouldn't call this a drop ball. I'd just call this a missed opportunity. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we messed that, mate. So yeah, so that's my card, which obviously would be great. Like I said, I might actually write that one day because it'd just be good to read. But
also, we know automatically who would win the battle royal, and it is not me.
Well, you might do.
No, there is only one result, and it is Rasta.
Yeah, I mean, we all love Rasta, don't we? And the fact that I haven't put him down on the title range yet, but he is actually a legitimate 6WF world champion, isn't he? Because Mark,
he won it on the last show, didn't he?
Yeah, Mark, obviously trust Marky to write that, but like he put the belt on him, and I think it was quite fitting in a way. I think even though it sounds like a Marky thing to do, I think it does make sense in some ways. Like, but yeah,
it's the last show. Why not?
There'd just be so many good names in it, though, mate. Like, I could reel off. It'd be hard to get everybody on there because I thought about like obviously Perfect Jack, who's I'm a big fan of.
Honestly, I'd have the producers stuff. Like, I mean, going back decades, just all the characters, every single one.
Yeah, exactly. Do you remember Nigel Napalm? He was an absolute legend. Like,
I actually do remember Nigel.
Yeah, I dropped the world title to him, and I pushed for that because he was so good at the time. And I think I don't know what happened to him, but he was quality. He'd be in that battle royal. I mean, you could have put him in the hardcore hell match, to be fair, because his character would have fit 100%. Yeah, it's hard, mate.
I think you could also put Engel in the hardcore hell.
Oh no, yeah, he is in. Yeah,
He's in. I'm completely stupid then.
Yeah, I couldn't not have him in. I mean, he's pretty much made for a match like that, isn't he?
Yeah. Anyway, going back to the last thing. Any question you want to ask me, I will answer honestly.
Yeah. So a couple of things, right? Let's start off with obviously the current product that we've got at the minute. And are you happy with the last, say, year, but it's more than a year? So basically, since we restarted, are you happy with your run?
Yeah, I mean, overall, yeah. It's allowed me to explore these things. I've faced people who I have really gelled with, who you know about.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, yeah, I have enjoyed it. I mean, a couple of little minor things, but I think for the sake of the story, it's a case of, okay, we know where this is going, but it's like, yeah, it's fine.
Right. Well, no, I'm glad to hear that. And this is the same for anyone. Honestly, like I'm not expecting to please you all the time. But you can tell me. It's not a case of I can't take it, or sometimes it helps me to get a bit of feedback, even if it's perceived as negative. Couple of other questions I've got for you.
Okay.
So, champions that we've got currently, right? So we've got, how many titles have we got at the minute? 4 or 4 belts? 5 belts. we've got 6WF, 6CW, European, Extreme, and the tag team titles. So at the minute, tag champs, me and Saint. Who would you drop those belts to next?
What? Just the tag ones?
Well, I'm going to go through them all, mate. But the tag titles to start with, like, who would you have beat me and Saint to win them belts?
Oh God! In terms of storyline, this is actually really tricky because
You could create a story if you wanted to. Like, you could say, it might not be somebody obvious. You could make a team. Who do you think would go well together?
that's the thing. Everyone is so quality together. I mean, honestly, I'm just looking at I'm looking at the United Champions card, and it's just like I could honestly see you losing it to Blue Dragon and Logan Kincaid.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to obviously tell you, but that's the reason for the match, is because the same way that it was when we did the last main event with us versus Genesis. I mean, I'm sure people thought there was a real possibility we could lose it to them.
Yeah,
that's the idea, because you want to create believable championship matches, don't you? I mean,
yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, let's go look at the rest of them. Let's go. Honestly, with Extreme, I've got absolutely no idea. Honestly, Jeff is running with that ball for a long fucking time.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've just brought Jimmy Phillips back in, which is Gazzy's secondary character. And I like Phillips. And I talked to Gazzy about this because, again, during COVID, this time that existed outside of space and time, I had a good story going with him where basically he just battered Hall of Famers. Bit like the Randy Orton Legend Killer, but it was really good, which is why we kind of brought him back. But at the same time, yeah, Jeff we're kind of just building him up, and he's the king of the extreme, isn't he? And he's just...
I mean, if you honestly need me to pick a person who would take the belt off Jeff...
Yeah, who would you pick?
I would go Perfect Jack.
Right. I mean, I'm interested because... obviously,
mainly because Perfect Jack can finally... I mean, I don't even think Clark has even won the Extreme Championship.
No.
It could be just the one thing that he has, that Perfect Jack has over Clark.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's legitimate, and obviously they've been in and around together for a long time, so maybe.
European? Again, I've got no clue.
Yeah, who's going to beat Dicey?
I mean, honestly, I'm picking all the madmen here. I honestly think Asa could, but I don't know how to get from there to there.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I kind of enjoy the open challenge thing that we're doing at the minute, because we can literally bring anyone. I mean,
yeah,
that question mark's there because sometimes I'm thinking to myself, like, I've got an idea of someone on the roster, but I also like doing the open challenge just in case, on that off chance that maybe Demon or somebody else might message me and say I'd like to come back, and it's just like an absolute mind blower because you don't actually know who. Remember when the Kevin Owens?
Yeah,
with John Cena. It's that, for me, I like doing the open challenge because just on the off chance somebody might want to come back, and then it's like it's an easy in and it's a massive match straight away because Dicey's such a big character.
Yeah, and oh god, the the 60th World Heavyweight Championship. Oh,
So who's going to beat Eddie Kent?
Oh god, I mean, honestly, even with the idea I said I wouldn't do it. I mean, he's honestly. This is actually really tricky. Again, with all the balance you've got, I mean, there's like 4 people I can see going for it and it being good.
Yeah, go on.
And that is obviously Rex, that is Liam, that is Patrick's, and I'm just oh god. Honestly, if I could, in a perfect world, I would honestly have you turn heel and do it.
Mhm. I'd actually really like to promo with Ed. I think it'd be great. We never have ever. Yeah, interesting.
That would be honestly. It's just I'm not kissing up for anything. It's just a case of. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to spoil what I sent you. I'm not
No.
going to spoil, but it's a case of I could see that happening, but long shot at best.
Yeah. So obviously, then finally, who I know he's only just won it, but who is going to beat Blue Dragon for the sixth?
I mean, considering, oh god, how many real? I mean, this is gonna screw my knowledge over a little bit, but how many real big men have we got left? It's Blue Dragon.
Blue Dragon, Logan, well Jeff, because Jeff Steele's character is that he's like mad strong, like
Yeah,
and plus he feuded with Dragon last year, which was a bloodbath. But apart from that, we've got me and Saint, but we're bigger, I guess, in stature.
yeah. I mean,
Rex is a powerhouse.
I'm gonna toot my own horn here, and on the off chance, I'm gonna say myself.
Yeah.
Ideally, mainly because it's that mainly for the dichotomy balance, because I'm not exactly the biggest. I'm like, what, 215?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like 5'10. And it's just like, okay, but I've fought against bigger men. I mean, my history with Marty Helms and Cassius being prime examples of fighting monsters.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. To be fair, I think it'd write well. I mean, I know you briefly sort of crossed paths when he was involved. You first, remember when
And he eliminated me in the Battle Royal.
Yeah, you were feuding with Gazzy and Plague, and he was obviously just getting involved in that storyline at the same time. So, yeah, I mean, we've got history on it. And
I could work. I mean, like I say, I've always used to working with, I always like working with that dichotomy of like fighting monsters.
Yeah, and I like a bit of history. I like storyline that we can go back on. And so,
and that was your second. That was the second question. So,
yeah.
we have been going nearly 3 hours. It's been a lot of fun.
I mean, fair play to anybody that manages to listen to all this and get through it all. But yeah, it's been an absolute blast. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right then. Well, in that case, then, anything you want to quickly say to everyone before I finish this up?
Just shout out to everyone. Appreciate all the hard work you're all putting in.
Plug the site.
Yeah, catch us on V2, 606v2.com.
Yep.
/6CWF. That's where it's at.
Is there a further slash?
There might be a couple of slashes going on there.
Yes. Yeah. It's slash something dash 6CWF.
If you type 6CWF in on Google, it brings it up. So
yeah,
shout us out. You come and find us if you want to pretend to be a wrestler. Demon, if you're listening,
or just expand your creative writing.
Yeah, exactly. Demon, if you're listening, I know you're listening. Remember, never beat me. So get yourself back. Same with everybody else that we've mentioned. Obviously doors always open. Just come and have some fun. It's no pressure. It's a bit of a laugh, really. So
the main point is we all have fun here. But like I say, this is VIP Productions episode 1 signing off.
Latest, guys.